Chapter 1930. Countless magic circles appeared in the void one after another. The dense number was like a dark great wall of death right in front of them. They had no time to care about anything else other than preparing to defend and attack. Those were the magic circles that all of them were very familiar with. The scene of them unleashing energy torrents in the front line could be seen every day, destroying countless abyssal death mist and its spawns. But this time, the endless magic circles had all turned their cannons to point at them. Hundreds of oscillations mixed with origin energy and annihilation energy only tore the order domain and the energy tower array apart. Not a single person was lost. Luckily we prepared that thing in advance. Hui endured the dizziness of his brain being shaken and ran to the front to take the lead in maintaining the order domain. The words that he muttered made everyone stunned. After thinking about it, they all let out an ah in their hearts. The concept creation that was used to identify the energy of the observer and to avoid aggravating the degree of accidental injury to their own people. As it was the highest level command, they had all raised the level of this thing to the same level as themselves. They thought that it would only come in handy on the day they launched an attack on the underworld. They did not expect to encounter such a thing and had to check it in advance. If they did not prepare that thing, after being torn apart in the order domain and taking more than 100 chaos oscillations head-on, they would have lost more than half of their people. But there is no way to avoid it. As maple silk becomes more chaotic, the energy identification effect will gradually decrease, Sui Qing said dizzily. We did not expect to completely avoid it. At this moment, it is already very surprising that we can still guarantee about 60% of the evasion effect. Hui grinned hard, looking at the funnel in front of him that was still stacking the magic circles. His face turned green. How many were there already? Based on his understanding of the funnel and the fact that it was gradually becoming chaotic, it might already be in the order of billions. Guys, we have good news. Brother Lei's voice suddenly came, startling Hui and the others. What is it? Hurry up and say it. The origin domain is closed. Nonsense, we all saw it. It's been King smashed, and we've all been dragged into the void. Everyone's scolding made Brother Lei smile bitterly. I thought, then it's fine. Sorry to disturb you, everyone. That's it. What kind of good news was this? If this was good news, they had good news too. Now, they were being slapped in the face by a billion-class formation. They were so full of energy that they wished they could take them away with 10,000 formations at once. Hui and Sui Qing turned around and saw Sui Feng and the other two. They were Sui Feng and the other two. However, judging from their dizzy looks, it was obvious that they had been beaten up by Sui Feng and the other two from a long distance away. I was rolled tens of thousands of times by that cube. My brain juices are all over the place. Sui Feng rolled his eyes and reported to the sky. The item is not damaged. It's just that the domain was destroyed. It will recover after some time. What's the situation now? Hui Wu Yin raised his hand, and the three of them looked over. They were already dizzy, and at this moment, they sucked in a breath of cold air and almost collapsed. We're in trouble. What should we do now? Sui Feng hurriedly looked around. The domain of order was still desperately recovering and recharging. Similarly, the 1 billion energy towers were also in an overloaded state, but were not releasing any energy. They had to wait for Brother Maple to make his move before they could make their move. But just keeping him in check wasn't going to work. They had to get someone to wake that guy up. Brother Lei gritted his teeth, raised his right arm, and pinched it with his left hand. A burst of silver lightning flashed, and the origin energy surged. It looked like an overloaded energy tower. I'll think of a way to get there. Qing Jun was excited. I'll go too. You're not going. Hui Wu Yin was even more agitated. If you guys go out there, you'll be dead before you can even say your last words. The only ones who can fight Feng head-on are those things above. We can't even hit him with a combined blast. What can you guys do if you go out there? Old Brother Lei and Lady Green were even more excited. Just as they were about to say something, the turbulence in the void and the chaotic energy that was spreading crazily shocked everyone. Their vigilance skyrocketed. The Emperor, in the formation that came from an unknown distance away, began to move forward with his army. Every step he took towards them made them feel the chaotic energy boiling further. Hui Wuyin gritted his teeth. His body began to turn into a golden form. His whole body released a burst of holy energy. He waved his hand and shouted, "Everyone, switch the energy towers to attack mode. Leave the defense to me." Send me his first round of 10,000 formations and hit them back. The domain of guardians spread rapidly along the domain of order. In just 2 seconds, the entire domain of order was covered and replaced. A thick layer of energy barrier with golden lightning covered the entire domain of order. From the edge, one could see that the barrier was at least a few feet thick. Countless holy energy surged inside. Jing Yuanji, use the remaining space beacons to open the crack. Let 2 idle origin sanctum from the outside come in. Everyone else, attack with all your might. The first wave of order disintegration is here. A short half a minute passed by in the blink of an eye. The Emperor, who was slowly walking towards them, was really just taking one step at a time. The chaos energy that was boiling and rising by an unknown number of levels made him look extremely terrifying. The countless huge magic circles that were revolving around him trembled slightly as they poured out countless dark energy torrents. There were also countless energy torrents that were exploding in the realm of order. In an instant, the 2 mighty attacks collided violently in the void, causing countless energy fireworks to explode. The energy flames that were like curtains were torn apart by the mighty chaos impact as they crashed heavily onto the thick golden barrier. In an instant, the entire barrier and the realm of order were on the verge of collapsing. The edges of the golden barrier that was at the very front had snowflake-shaped cracks appearing all of a sudden. Continue to attack. Don't stop. Don't worry about me. Hui Wuyin held the shield of guardians with both hands and threw it to various places in the domain of order to help support a stronger holy barrier. My defense is also stacked step by step. If you can break my defense in 20 minutes, I won't be a human anymore. Everyone's teeth ached when they heard that. Is this guy a jinx or a jinx? No, I'm going to rush out. Qing Jun shouted loudly and grabbed a large sword from the back of a person nearby. He shouted loudly as he raised the order barrier and charged towards Lord Foam. I'll be back soon. Wait, I'll go too. Brother Lei's silver thunderbolt lingered and turned into a silver lightning bolt from the domain of order. He rushed into the depths of the void with Qing Jun. We're responsible for attracting attention. You take the opportunity to attack with all your might. Don't worry about us. Let's just fight to the death. The 2 of them said in unison. Their voices were so heroic that Hui was speechless. He waved his hand and pointed at them with the holy sword. Fight them both. Take them down for me. Everyone, it's just a joke. Don't take it seriously. Just continue to attack. In the distance, the tremendous energy shock waves from the clash between order and chaos flickered with extremely intense flames. Perhaps it was because 2 people had rushed over to fight him head-on, but he was slightly distracted. The chaos shock waves and order disintegration that poured down on the order domain were slightly less powerful. However, looking at the overall situation, the order domain was still being violently beaten up. If we gather all our forces, we can suppress his attack. Sui Qing frowned and said softly, half of our forces are guarding the front line and can't leave. When the time comes, we don't need to increase the number of people. It's just that, she said with a slightly worried tone, his condition is gradually recovering. Huey's face turned purple and green. Recovering means that the degree of chaos erosion has deepened. His will is beginning to fall into a disadvantage. His will is beginning to be forced to synchronize with his body, and the degree of power available is gradually increasing. Don't joke around, buddy. Are you really going to compromise here? Sui Qing nodded slightly. Her blue starry eyes stared into the depths of the void. The frequency of attack has increased. His degraded chaos domain is limited in range and strength. He is gradually approaching here. If he collides with the domain of order head-on, your barrier won't last half a minute. The origin energy has been unleashed to the maximum. Even if we use the origin energy to build a domain to support the attack, it won't have much effect on him. She gritted her teeth and sighed softly. His familiarity and mastery of the origin energy is greater than ours. Moreover, he knows the attack pattern of the Void frontline very well. We can only choose to fight him head-on. No. This is the number one weapon charging at us. We can't hold it. We can't fight him head-on either. We have to think a way. Boom! The entire domain of order shook violently as if it was being torn apart. Huey's face twitched twice. He saw that the speed at which cracks appeared on his divine barrier and guardian barrier were gradually exceeding the speed at which they were being repaired, and it was still accelerating. His face became even more bitter. 20 minutes was the limit he could hold on for. He had to maintain the trend of constantly strengthening his defenses to hold on for 20 minutes, because the guy on the other side was also constantly increasing his attack power. But it was clear that the speed at which he strengthened his defenses could not keep up with that guy. Sparring with Maple was a headache, because he would see that the guy opposite him was constantly increasing his attack power every minute and every second as if there was no upper limit. Even if he was beaten to the ground by Maple, he would not necessarily see his upper limit. Not to mention that this was not a sparring session, but a real confrontation with Maple, who was standing opposite. Then, that would be even worse. And if he allowed the situation to continue, if the battle continued to develop without any changes at most 10 minutes, Maple's chaotic form would completely stabilize. Then, it would be the beginning of the gathering storm. After that, in another 2 or 3 minutes, the first round of the Void, infinite chaos would come. This time, it was really infinite chaos. More than 80% of the guys here could not withstand this power after leaving the domain of order. Even the concept creation that was prepared to recognize Maple's energy was the same. This thing was not perfect yet, but it could not withstand the damage from Maple's energy. After all, it was the first time he tried to create a creation. If there was a chance after this, he would try to adjust it again. Smash his magic circle. Think of a way to get close and smash his defense. Put the Guardian's shield on his face and continue to attack his soul with holy shock. If it doesn't work, hit his face. Hit him with physical pain until he wakes up. Hui Jun's voice made the people around him smile bitterly. The idea was quite good, and they also thought so, but they could not figure out how to do it. Looking at the magic circle that was constantly pouring energy, it was a problem how to get through his attack blockade. Come on, cooperate with me. I can control the magic circle. The calm voice made everyone and Hui Jun stunned. They turned their heads and saw the girl in white walking forward slowly. She looked at him and nodded lightly. You could try. Hui Jun grimaced and asked suspiciously, How confident are you? No. Where did your idea come from? The girl in white pressed her right hand on her chest. I am the idea. Everyone. Sui Qing explained softly. I didn't tell you that she was a life born from the magic circle. She was born with the magic circle as the foundation and core of the structure. She was not a magic circle spirit. Hui Jun's jaw dropped to express his shock. The other heirs were also stunned. Sui Feng could not help but ask, I didn't hear you say that. It's not a good thing, so I didn't want to talk about it. The girl in white took a breath. She raised her snow-white arm, and golden lines began to appear on it. It seemed like she was drawing something. It was as if the aura of a magic circle was spreading out from her body. But at this time, there was no other way. Sui Qing whispered through their souls. Only the gods, Big Brother AI, and a few other second-generation inheritors know about this. But the other second-generation inheritors have all passed away, so I'm the only one who knows about this. There are some things that we don't want to talk about, so we've never talked about it. Sui Feng scratched his head. Why didn't you tell me? Can you tell me? You were not guarding the same node as us at that time. Besides, why should I tell you about a girl's matter? Sui Feng was speechless. Fine. He did not know what to say. Hui Jun grinned. There were a lot of life forms in this world. It was normal. He was used to it. If the life forms of the magic circle were to be categorized, they would be creature-type life forms, and her life form would be energy-type life forms. As for why she did not want to talk about it, well, I already said that it was not a good thing. Everyone had their own thoughts and concerns, so it was normal that they did not want to talk about it. Moreover, it was related to their own nature. Just look at Maple. While he was talking about it, he was plucked out of the void by the gods of origin and became a class of his own. It was really sad. If someone else knew that they were plucked out of the void by someone else and became a thing of unknown origin, they would be depressed for a long time. He himself will be depressed for 1,000,000 years. Maple, the guy did not take it seriously in just a few days. He even used it to tease himself. The life forms of the magic circle should have great control over the magic circle. I see. So that's what you're thinking. Hui Jun threw his thoughts aside and got down to business. In other words, you can directly use the magic circle to fight Maple head-on. You can directly eliminate this part of his power, and the rest of us will... My control over the magic circle is not as good as his, the girl in white said calmly. Everyone was speechless. As expected of the Emperor of Formations, the title of Emperor lived up to its name. A being that used formations as the core of its structure admitted that it was inferior to the former in terms of mastery of formations, but it made sense since the latter alone could control the countless formations in the void frontline, which was clearly not something a human could do. No matter how one looked at it, Xiao Xiao was a proper living being, in other words, a human. So, I need someone to help me. The girl in white looked at him and then at Sui Qing. I can interfere with part of the magic circle. I'll leave the rest to you. How much do you mean by part of the magic circle? Tell us a percentage so that we can estimate the situation, Sui Feng quickly said. The girl in white looked at him. All the magic circles limit it to 30%. I can only hold on until my form collapses. Everyone, although she was a person just from this level alone, she wasn't a simple character. They thought that she would only be able to interfere with part of the array. They had already thought about which part of the array would be interfered with and which part would be attacked. They just had to take his life while he was down. They didn't expect her to mean that she could interfere with all the arrays. As expected of the life of the array, she lived up to her name. But the moment she opened her mouth, she said that her form would collapse. Don't learn from that guy. Have you guys come up with a plan? The two barbarians who were charging at the front suddenly sent a message back at the same time, causing everyone to turn their heads and be stunned for a moment. The chaotic impact that had just been weakened by a portion was now attacking at an extremely high frequency. We had felt that the pressure had skyrocketed since a minute ago, and even his head had become a size bigger than before. Little brother Maple has started to ignore our attacks and is heading straight for you. We can't stop him. We can't stop him. I don't care what method you have. Just show us the way. The girl in white looked around and nodded to everyone. Then I'll go first. As soon as she finished speaking, her body turned into complicated patterns and disappeared into nothingness. Everyone was stunned and followed her aura. In the depths of nothingness, hundreds of miles in front of the observer, suddenly appeared golden patterns of light and shadow, condensing into her body. The purple gold patterns spread all over her body, carving out complicated but beautiful patterns that they did not understand. Then, the nothingness around her began to distort with her as the center. An energy of distorting nothingness appeared out of thin air. He was not unfamiliar with it. It was a method of forcefully distorting all elements and forcefully projecting them where they were. It was one of the methods of the Origin School. It could basically bypass most blockades, including the nothingness enveloped by Maple's immature chaotic domain. A golden light appeared in the distorted nothingness. Arrays with elliptical centers that looked like awls descended here. The tens of millions of purple gold arrays that were between thousands and tens of thousands of feet in size also looked very vast and grand. However, compared to the arrays in front of her, which numbered in the billions and had an average size of more than 1,000 miles and were constantly increasing, it was simply like an egg hitting the sun. The sudden appearance of another array attracted the attention of Yin Nuoxing. He slowly turned his gaze and stared at the other person in the array with his dark eyes. He slowly raised his right hand, and the chaotic energy began to condense. Lord Maple, don't look around. Look at me. If you have anything, come at me. Green's violent power collided with Lord Maple's chaotic domain and barrier. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws at Lord Maple's chaotic domain and barrier, as if he was demonstrating his power. The violent impact of order and chaos slightly attracted the attention of Yin Nuashing, but he was obviously more concerned about the person in the array behind Green. He ignored Green, who was baring his fangs and brandishing his claws, and the chaotic energy in his hand began to condense. Boom! Suddenly, the impact of order that was hundreds of times stronger broke free from the suppression of the chaotic energy and collided with the chaotic domain. His eyes flickered slightly, and he turned his head. In the distant chaotic domain, 20 huge origin temples had appeared out of nowhere. Behind those temples, a huge light blue crack was slowly closing. The 20 origin temples that were lined up in a row supported the entire chaotic domain together, and, at the same time, increased the attack power of the energy towers by hundreds of times. With the support of the origin temples, most of the people who had nothing to worry about were almost all using their energy to attack. For a moment, they actually tore apart his overwhelming ceiling attack and poured their attacks on his domain and barrier. Yin Nuashing only took a few glances at the chaotic domain and barrier that were being crazily attacked. Then, he looked at the person in the array again. Yin Nuashing opened his mouth slightly and let out a murmur that seemed to tremble in the void. The gray energy condensed into lines that converged into strange and distorted words beside him. Just when he was about to do something, a gigantic oval-shaped barrier that seemed to be pieced together by pieces of crystals suddenly appeared in front of him. The energy of order condensed into golden meteors that turned into streaks of light that streaked across the oval-shaped barrier. It was as if thousands of stars were appearing and disappearing quickly, spreading the energy of order throughout the entire domain. For a moment, it actually suppressed the energy of chaos in this area. Meanwhile, he and his countless magic circles were trapped in the crystal barrier. The surging energy of order and the rules of order seemed to announce that this was the domain of order, suppressing his chaos energy. The dark runes that were floating around him were also affected. After a few trembles, they slowly collapsed as if they could not sustain themselves anymore. He stood at the edge of his primeval domain and looked inside with a gaze that was like visiting a prisoner. He cleared his throat and shouted to Maple, who was hundreds of miles away, "Old man, can you still make a sound? If you're still alive, can you use your method to make a sound for us?" Boom! What responded to him was the impact of the chaotic energy that burst out from countless magic circles. The entire primeval domain was instantly occupied by the chaotic energy. The energy of order and chaotic energy collided with each other and was extremely dazzling. Even though the primeval domain had the effect of reflecting attacks and could use various methods to weaken the chaotic energy that was rushing towards his face, we still felt that the entire primeval domain was crazily wailing in pain. Trying to trap Maple in the primeval domain was just wishful thinking. Even if this was Maple, who was still a little dazed and could not move nimbly after being weakened. Hui shivered twice and quickly looked back at the white-clothed girl. "It's all up to you now." Tens of millions of purple gold magic circles were already ready to go. After Huey's instruction, she suddenly opened her purple gold eyes and the origin energy surged. Between her hands was a gray cloud that was bound by countless purple gold energy lines. Her eyes that reflected the primeval domain in front of her passed through countless blooming energy fireworks and stared at him, who was looking at her in a magic circle. She opened her mouth and whispered softly, "The truth of structure perishes here." They did not understand the principle, nor did they know what had happened. Anyway, they saw that the group of purple gold magic circles that were shaped like L's suddenly expanded to the left and right sides, spreading out purple gold energy lines as if they were beginning to move. Then, the chaotic energy that was trapped in the primeval domain of the Guardian was instantly weakened to a visible degree. The attack power was definitely weakened by more than 30%. and him, who was used to using magic circles as a defense. At this time, his defense power was probably reduced by more than 30%. Hui pointed his sword forward and poured the limit of energy into the primeval domain. While Maple is being suppressed, destroy all these energy towers for me. Attack with all your might. The primeval domain of order that was connected into a sea of light burst out a wave of energy that was almost self-destructive. More than 100 origin energy merged into it and became the dominant force. After a slight delay, the continuous sea of light burst out a huge and exaggerated primeval domain of order, just like the origin energy that he usually used. The mighty energy torrent crossed the void in an instant, swept past the white-clothed girl and Hui, and crashed into the primeval domain with an oppressive volume. Hui saw the opportunity and crushed the golden energy crystal in his hand. The impact, wrapped in countless order and origin energy, fell together with the collapse of the entire primeval domain. A majestic energy flame, energy explosion, and impact pierced through the land of nothingness. Standing in the realm of order and looking at it, it was as if they were looking at a supernova exploding in the distant starry sky. Abnormally bright light illuminated the entire starry sky. In this extremely short period of time, everyone couldn't even feel the power of the void, rules, order, and other powers, even though they were so far away from the place where the energy explosion occurred. At the moment of the explosion, Hui pulled the white-clothed girl back for a distance to avoid being involved in the indescribable energy impact. He saw the purple-gold magic circle around the girl dissipating in a few tremors. He quickly asked, "Dissipated? What's going on?" "The target of suppression has disappeared. There are no other magic circles in the range." The purple-gold lines on the white-clothed girl's body also dimmed little by little as the magic circle disappeared. She said lightly, "It can be determined that the magic circle is all destroyed." "Lord Maple, will he be okay?" Jing Yuanji's worried voice came through the soul transmission, startling everyone. They couldn't bear to look at the nothingness that was still releasing violent bursts of energy. Being caught in such a violent explosion of energy, they couldn't use their soul seeds to confirm the situation of the people inside for a while. Don't be so quick to think that something is wrong. You may not be particularly clear about the situation of your Lord Observer, but I definitely know it better than you. Hui shook his head vigorously. His words left everyone stunned. Get the energy towers ready. This kind of attack will never kill him. I only care if this level of attack can get rid of the chaos energy in his body. Have you forgotten what I said at the beginning? Wake him up, instead of beating him to death. If we really kill him in the void front line will lose the power of any node. Everyone couldn't help but smile bitterly. As expected of the Lord Guardian, everyone looked at each other and hurriedly took out more energy towers and placed them in the void. Once again, neat white walls pointed towards the void. The gathered energy caused the order realm to become as bright as a sea of light once again. Hui gently pushed the white-clothed girl into the realm of order. He himself carefully approached the place where the infinite energy explosion was. When he came to a place 100 feet away from the energy explosion, he took a deep breath and gently pointed his hand forward. After hesitating for 2 seconds, he waved his hand and carefully pushed the violent and destructive energy to the side. The gradually dissipating energy of order and origin exposed the scene at the center. The situation inside the energy explosion appeared under everyone's nervous gaze. Many people subconsciously held their breath. The center of the energy explosion area was empty, making everyone stunned. A lot of strange thoughts rushed into their minds in an instant and began to wander. Jing Yuanji had already wanted to rush over to check the situation carefully, but she was stopped by the little angel. "Don't go." The little angel shook her head at Jing Yuanji. The seriousness on her face startled the latter. Hui, who was standing at the front, was also stunned for a few seconds when he saw the empty center. After thinking for a while, he stopped breathing for a moment. He quickly turned around and waved his hand to tear the energy cluster that he had just pushed away. His pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle. His handsome face became extremely distorted due to excessive shock. Dark gray energy slowly appeared from the torn energy cluster. It was in a relatively calm state, but Maple, who was releasing this aura, was now curled up. The dark gray energy was like flames and clouds that wrapped around him. Two pairs of azure wings formed by the dark gray energy extended from his shoulder blades and wrapped around himself. The netherworld ruin sword in his arms was releasing a demonic purple-black light that was entangled with the dark gray energy. What? He was so shocked that he could not even speak. The next moment, the pair of dark gray eyes gently opened. Maple, as two pairs of azure wings slowly stretched out. He slowly stood up, holding the hilt of the netherworld ruin sword with both hands, full defense. Because of extreme shock, a distorted voice exploded in everyone's soul transmission, making everyone's scalp tingle. They hurriedly looked over and saw that the Lord Guardian could only strengthen the defense because he could not make it back in time. Then they saw the Lord Observer, who was not far from him, stretching out his azure wings and holding the netherworld ruin sword with both hands. At that moment, everyone understood, and at that moment, everyone's faces turned pale. Origin, chaos. It was as if everyone had been dragged into the center of a supernova explosion. A wild wave of colors and darkness brought with it an impact that tore apart the void and drowned the entire world. In an instant, all that was left was the scene of being swallowed up by countless colors, and in an instant, only the sound of violent energy echoing in everyone's ears. Chapter 1931. Where's this place? My brain seems to have been shaken, and I can't tell north from south. I can't remember what I was doing just now. What was I doing just now? Ouch, my throat hurts a little. Did I just shout? My body hurts. There's an inexplicable pain, as if I was chained up and spun a few million times in the nothingness, and then slammed into the barrier of the primordial realm, knocking my soul out of my body and almost into the path of reincarnation. What kind of strange feeling is this? I don't know, but it seems to be this feeling. My body feels like it's about to split apart. So far, this feeling seems to only happen when I'm facing a chaos concept body, as if I'm going to be torn apart like a piece of cloth in the next second. Chaos concept body. Oh no, I remember now. I was just swept into the center of the origin of chaos by Maple and Ravaged. I have to wake up quickly. But I can't move. Can't move. That bastard Maple hit me so hard that I was really going to shatter. Forcing himself to take a deep breath and wake up his muddled consciousness, he opened his eyes abruptly. What he saw was still the nothingness, but what he saw now was completely different from what he saw before he fainted. The light ocean created by order was torn apart, and the order domain was torn apart by the origin of chaos head-on. The scene was just like the void frontline torn apart by the 20 high-tier primeval a few years ago, but it seemed to be more fragmented. Oh no, I have to reorganize the order domain quickly. Hui hurriedly stood up and was stunned when he saw his almost transparent body. A few seconds later, he couldn't help but laugh bitterly. The last time he was flipped over by the 20 high-tier primeval chariots in the void frontline, he didn't end up like this. He had forgotten when was the last time his form was shattered, and he was beaten back to his original form. After all, he was used to and instinctively pulling his defenses to the maximum, and was also the most solid shield guarding the void frontline. Generally speaking, when he cracked, the situation would be very urgent. He did not expect that this time Maple's origin, primordial chaos, would bring him back to his original form. But in fact, he was reaping what he sowed. He walked so close to the place without any preparation. He himself said that Maple would not die so quickly, but in the end, he did not even bring a layer of protection and walked to the center of the energy as if he was going to die. But he didn't expect that that round of focus fire would directly hit Maple's law, order, energy form out. But thinking about it carefully, hitting Maple's form out was better than waiting for him to use it himself. Forcing him to use this form, regardless of whether it was the power or the duration, was much worse than him actively using it himself. But even so, they were still unable to escape the fate of being baptized by origin, chaos for God knows how many times. Just now, they were slapped unconscious by a huge wave. About a minute had passed, and there were less than 4 minutes left before the next origin, chaos, was cast. It shouldn't be the most violent state where it could be cast 2 or 3 times in a minute. His chaotic state obviously hadn't stabilized yet, and he was forced into this state, so it shouldn't be to that extent. Ah, really? I'm a little angry. I'm angry. We shouted a few times at the void and took a few deep breaths. While he was taking deep breaths to make himself look more irritable, he rolled up his sleeves and clenched his fists. The golden energy on his body surged, and his long black hair turned into a dazzling golden color. The flow of holy energy condensed the transparent figure back into a solid form. We clenched his fists and made a series of cracking sounds. He gritted his teeth and muttered to himself, "I shouldn't have cared that you are in the form of chaos. I should have let the realm of order press you into the void and beat you up until you wake up. Those who are muddled by chaos should be beaten up without discussion. You set yourself." He looked at the torn realm of order that had yet to be rebuilt. But not everyone had given up. There were still violent energy explosions in the void. The surging energy of order and chaos were all thrown at each other's faces. The frenzied battle and the high frequency of the battle was because Maple had increased the speed of the battle to the point where it was difficult to keep up. Under such circumstances, it was difficult to regroup as a whole. Everyone was scattered in all directions. The energy from order was like endless raindrops, arrows, and energy streams from countless corners, bombarding the gray figure that was moving at high speed. Although the scene looked like the latter was being beaten up, the void was still being suppressed by his immature realm of chaos. Coupled with his current state, he was still in control of the situation. Furthermore, the scattered power that could not be gathered together could not shake Maple in his current state. However, it was not easy for Maple to stand still and not fall apart under the rampaging of Maple. In this state, no matter who the enemy was, basically no one could take back control of the situation from him. No matter how many people there were, it was impossible. Once the origin of chaos smashed down, the destructive power would not be reduced. If one could not defend well, it would be a suicide mission. However, no matter how much defense they put up, they would only be able to hold on for a while longer, except for the 2 groups of people above. He raised his hand and smashed the Guardian's shield into the void, crushing it into pieces. The broken pieces of the shield were embedded into his body, turning into golden patterns and marks on his skin. He then took out the Guardian's sword. Some of the spreading patterns also penetrated into the sword. The sacred energy flashed, increasing the power of the sword by many times. Today, even if I have to sacrifice this old life of mine, I will smash you flat in the void. I will use the fighting method you taught me. Hui held the sword in his right hand. The white robe behind him was fluttering in the wind due to the sacred energy. The sudden change in his posture, the sudden change in his expression, and the sudden increase in his aura, there was indeed a shadow of a certain person in it. Innumerable energies crazily crisscrossed in the land of nothingness. Every time the surging chaos energy and order energy collided, they would leave a violent energy vortex in the land of nothingness. One could clearly see 2 different colored energies madly colliding in the vortex, desperately trying to kill each other. This was the background of the land of nothingness. The sizes of these energy vortexes ranged from thousands of feet to millions of miles in diameter. They densely covered the entire land of nothingness. In the largest energy vortex, there were 3 figures confronting each other head-on. To put it nicely, Brother Lei and Lady Green were just risking their lives to increase their combat power to keep up with the attack rhythm of the gray figure opposite them. The 2 of them could not withstand the frontal attack of the observer, which was equivalent to letting him rampage in the realm of order. In that case, before the origin of chaos smashed down, the remaining realm of order would be further destroyed, They had to hold him here even if it meant risking their lives. Having said that, both of them had been branded with 7 or 8 layers of annihilation energy. While dealing with the invading chaotic energy, they had to maintain their combat power in a state of gradual improvement at all times, and also keep up with the observer's rampage. This task was really too difficult. Even if they had the support of the entire realm of order behind them, it was impossible to do to this extent. Boom! When he once again confronted Lord Foam head-on, the annihilation energy on the Netherworld ruins sword rushed into his body, causing the chaotic energy in his body to become even more intense. Jing Yuanji's anxious voice came from the soul transmission. Lady Green, the degree of chaos erosion you have suffered is almost critical. Come back quickly. Wait a little longer. Qing Jun turned around and used all his strength to throw a heavy blow on the Netherworld ruins sword. Seeing Lord Feng's figure flickering and disappearing, he rushed towards Elder Brother Lei. He let out a roar and let all the energy in his body continue to boil as he charged towards him. After this round, just this round, everyone was so anxious that they gritted their teeth. This guy had been talking about this round since 2 minutes ago. God knows how many rounds of charging, and he still wants to do this round. The realm of order was broken, and now they had one less person who could barely withstand the observer's attack, and they would be completely done for. Back off! The explosive voice in the soul transmission had a strong, holy aura, startling everyone. Brother Lei, who was desperately hitting Silver Dragon, was also stunned. Out of the corner of his eye, he quickly caught a glimpse of a meteor entangled with violent holy energy rushing toward him. He gritted his teeth and gathered more origin energy in his right hand than he could release once. A wave of silver lightning surged, and he punched Brother Feng's Netherworld ruin sword. Silver Dragon. The blossoming Qianjun thunderbolt exploded into a violent storm of origin energy, and a figure entangled by the silver lightning was also sent flying backward. When he was sent flying, he hurriedly reached out to grab Lady Green, who was about to charge, and pulled him away from the battlefield. At the same time, he shouted at the golden meteor, "I'll leave it to you. Hold on for a while. Hey, wait. I can still charge for one more round. Just one more round. One more round, you idiot. Hurry up and go back to the realm of order. Let me deal with this bastard." The light of purplish-black energy tore the violent silver storm apart, and the gray figure burst out from it. Just as he was about to launch a pursuit with chaotic energy, he saw a huge golden meteor coming straight for his face. Without thinking, he swung the Netherworld ruins sword to meet it. Hui, with the violent holy energy, smashed the Netherworld ruins sword. The violent collision between order and chaos seemed to have opened up the void. The boiling energy had already gone beyond the scope of defense, as if it had temporarily superimposed an unknown amount of attack power. He could not help but yell at Brother Feng's face, "Wake up, you bastard!" The gray eyes responded to his cursing with a consciousness inclined to absolute violence and destruction. Yin Nuoxing did not care that the 2 targets had been reduced to 1. He just followed the endless will of destruction and listed the thing he was attacking as one of the targets to be destroyed. You want to kill me? Well, come on then. If I take a step back today, I'm not King Hui. Hui gritted his teeth and tried his best to convert all the energy in his body into attack power. The violent energy made his eyes spurt out a substantial golden light. The golden lines on the sword of the Guardian suddenly spread rapidly. The deep lines full of destructive power seemed to be tearing the big sword that focused on defense apart from the inside. The sword of the Guardian, which had been filled with energy, suddenly exploded under the next swing. The expanding holy energy ignited a holy storm, but neither of them stepped back. They continued to attack each other in the storm. Hui once again condensed the sword to meet Brother Feng's attack. In a flash, there were hundreds and thousands of collisions. The 2 of them seemed to be in a stalemate, but he had to maintain his strength under the corrosion of Maple's chaotic energy. He also had to brace himself to withstand Maple's powerful attacks that could topple mountains and overturn seas. That unreasonable power seemed to want to crush him and the entire land of nothingness. Every time a heavy attack landed on the Guardian's sword, he had the illusion that he would be sent flying to the end of nothingness in the next second. But if he was sent flying today, he would no longer be the Guardian. "I'm going to crush you," Hui yelled. The sudden surge of energy in his body made him suddenly understand something. All energy towers overload. Don't rush to attack. Wait for me. Hui continued to violently charge at Brother Phone. The two madly collided, and the energy of the clash of order and chaos filled the void. The scene was much grander than when the three of them fought with the entire realm of order. Suifeng's gaze followed the two guys who were rampaging in the void. After a while, he anxiously slapped the energy tower. "Origin Temple, convert the energy output form. Destroy this realm of chaos for me." The white-clothed girl quickly said, "No, if we weaken his support, it will—" "Don't worry." Hui Jun was able to keep up with Brother Feng's attack without the support of the realm of order. It's the same without support. The most important thing now is to destroy this realm. As long as the realm of chaos exists, Brother Feng's energy will always be limitless. We don't have an attack that can break his rule, order, energy form in one go. If this drags on, even Hui Jun won't be able to hold on. After a moment of charging and delay, the 20 temples of origin suddenly burst out with colorful energy beams that shot toward the top of the void. Before they could go far, they seemed to have collided with a boundary, and the mighty origin energy exploded in an instant. The boundary suddenly spread with ferocious patterns, and the entire void began to shake violently. The sudden violent impact from the realm of chaos made Yun Nuoxing's eyes narrow. He quickly saw the boundary of the realm of chaos being eroded and destroyed by the origin energy. Just as he was about to rush over, the golden meteor hit his face again. The golden sword in his hand, which was on the verge of breaking, smashed his head. Don't look around when you're fighting. With a roar, the violent holy energy exploded on the spot and instantly turned into a violent golden star that released violent energy. However, it only released a blazing light for less than a second before it was torn into pieces by a gray and purple-black light. Yun Nuoxing's body was entangled with the scorching holy energy, and the Netherine sword slashed heavily at Hui Jun, who had yet to condense a new sword. Clang! The golden pattern embedded in Huey's skin turned into a palm-sized shield, which was exactly the same as the Guardian's shield. It blocked the heavy blow, and the trembling, rebounding energy almost bounced the Netherine sword away. Feng turned his hand and condensed the chaotic energy into a weapon. However, because his hand was shaken this time, the rhythm of his frenzied attack was slightly disrupted. His attack was delayed for a moment, and a golden sword condensed in front of him with violent power pierced in front of him and sent him flying. Hui ran on the big sword that had just been condensed and rushed out to launch a hot pursuit. A small shield condensed in front of his right hand that was clenched into a fist. When Maple reacted in an instant and was about to counterattack, a punch was thrown. Boom! The chaotic energy exploded from the side and covered Huey's head and face. He was stunned for a moment. Damn it, he forgot about Feng, this magic circle. This guy basically did not use magic circles in this form, but it did not mean that he could not use them. He did not have time to clear the chaotic energy entangling his body. He hurriedly tore apart the energy impact and flew out. Just as he calmed down, he saw Feng, not far away, holding the Netherine sword with both hands and stabbing it heavily into the void. I haven't been sent flying by you yet. Don't think that this is the end. A huge golden shield, which was as large as a city wall, suddenly appeared in front of Feng. Hui hurriedly grabbed the city wall at the last moment and threw a heavy punch at Feng like a falling meteorite. Origin, chaos. The frenzied shriek of the energy suddenly spread across the void. The chaotic energy of origin and annihilation pressed against Huey's city wall, in front of him and the realm of order behind him. But this time, there was a sturdy city wall in front of them that blocked the monstrous wave that was enough to shatter the void. The indiscriminate, monstrous wave was forcibly blocked by a corner and only affected the corner of the realm of order that was too large to be completely blocked. Even so, the impact of the annihilation of order and chaos hundreds of times in a second still tore the affected area of the realm of order into pieces. Everyone who took action when they saw the actions of the observer and the emergency measures of the guardian miraculously did not suffer much damage from the origin, chaos. They only lost a corner of the realm of order, and even the energy towers that charged them did not break. The city wall could not eat the full power of the origin, chaos released by foam at a close distance. The moment the city wall of the guardian shattered, Hui poured out a part of the remaining holy energy and turned it into a holy energy storm to continue to offset the remaining 2 to 3 seconds of the origin, chaos. He also had a part of the holy energy entangling his body. Like an arrow, he rushed into the center of the dual-colored energy ball. The countless energy impacts that exploded on his body instantly weakened the holy energy entangling his body to almost non-existence. He only crossed this short distance, and in less than a second, he almost exhausted all the energy that he used to maintain his current state. *TU. But before the energy was exhausted, he still crossed the distance. While the pair of gray eyes were stunned, the fist that condensed into a shield smashed heavily on Maple's chin, forcibly interrupting the origin, chaos that only had 1 second left, and sent him flying with a single blow. Fire! 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 The hoarse roar once again made everyone's scalp tingle. The hundreds of millions of energy towers that had been waiting for a long time gathered all the energy on the energy core, releasing a high-pitched energy roar in the void. A huge energy array formed in front of the core in an instant and shattered in an instant. The energy poured out with a power that was thousands of times stronger than before, condensing into a mighty energy torrent that crossed the void and swallowed the figure of the observer. Continue to fire. Continue to fire. Fire. Fire him. Fire at me. Fire at me. Fire at me. Everyone grimaced in pain. Their scalps tingled and their faces were in a mess. For a moment, they did not know whether to fire at the observer or the guardian. Green knew that Lord Hui, who was above him, was a little confused. He did not care that others were purifying the chaotic energy for him. He hurriedly jumped up and waved his hand. Aim at Lord Hui. Fire. Fire at full force. Shatter the realm of order and the energy towers for me. Throw out all the energy. As soon as he finished speaking, he was kicked to the ground by Jing Yuanji. I Ching rushed up and tied him up tightly. The latter scolded, "You've been corroded into half a chaotic person, yet you're still not obedient. You even stole my lines." The violent energy torrent lasted for a very short time before it was offset by a burst of gray energy from the inside. A ferocious Maple rushed out from it. The chaotic energy on his body was boiling, and 2 pairs of azure wings were dancing wildly. The chaotic energy that was several levels more violent than before caused the whole void to tremble. Arrays appeared around him, but they were not aimed at the area of order in front of him. Instead, they surrounded him and aimed up and down. The violent energy aura that came from them was exactly the same as the origin of chaos. Origin, don't treat me as if I don't exist, you bastard. Hui, who was covered in hundreds of millions of firepower of order, rushed to the front of Maple like a bull and smashed his head hard on Maple's head, crushing the origin of chaos in its cradle. Hui grabbed Maple's shoulders with both hands, and his golden eyes looked at the pair of gray eyes that were close at hand. Come on, feel the baptism of the origin and order with me. Vast amounts of energy rumbled and roared as they surged through their bodies. It was as if hundreds of billions of Tyrannosaurus Rex were trampling over them. The commotion caused even the void to tremble. At the same time, the chaotic energy that entangled the void had unknowingly weakened by a few levels. Sui Feng sensed the movement and immediately understood. He was the first to release the origin energy. Brother Maple has been weakened. His rule, order, energy form can't be maintained for long. Release the energy of the origin temple in one go. Don't worry about the energy in the later stage. Take down the realm of chaos. Take it down. Brother Thunder's body was entangled with 1/3 of the chaotic energy. He jumped up excitedly, clenching his hands into fists. All the silver lightning on his body poured out for the last time, along with all the origin energy. As if venting his anger, he punched the void in front of him. Silver Dragon! The full-powered blast of the origin energy, coupled with the origin temple emptying all the energy in one go, caused the realm of chaos that had held firm for half an hour to tremble. Countless huge cracks appeared on the void where Brother Thunder punched. While the master of the realm had no time to care about himself, the realm that had no energy support could not hold on. After shaking for a few seconds, it finally shattered, the dark energy dissipating like the ebbing tide. As the dark clouds over their heads dissipated, everyone felt the haze in their hearts dispersing abruptly. Their condition was once again restored to their peak, and without anyone's instructions, they really did their utmost to gather all the energy in the energy towers. Even if the attack was not over, some even emptied their storage worlds and threw a floor full of new energy crystals. It was a pity that they did not have the Tier 1 energy towers as the core to pour the energy. Otherwise, this attack could be at least 10,000 times more powerful. The violent energy that erupted from the depths of nothingness once again made everyone feel as if a boulder had been lifted from their hearts. The mighty energy torrent of order and origin lasted for another 2 seconds before it was completely exhausted. The energy torrent that had been poured out completely dissipated. The explosive force that erupted from the clash of the two figures tore the remaining energy into pieces. Hundreds of millions of dark energy arrays broke through the void and rushed out. They formed a sky curtain that covered the entire void. Maple's power, aura, and chaos energy had been raised to the highest level, and there was no sign of it rising any further. That was rare. It actually forced him to use his upper limit. He was going to launch his final attack. Block it. You must block it. A thick, chaotic barrier appeared in the form of a burst of energy and slammed into Huey's body, slowing down his movements. Maple's body erupted with a dense beam of chaotic energy. He held the nether void sword tightly in his right hand and knelt down to stab it into the void. The chaotic energy, which was approaching a state of madness, resonated with the countless arrays and released an energy shockwave that could topple the void. The last primordial chaos explosion was a second or two late. Just as it was about to explode, the crystal-like domain once again shrouded him. He gave up the big sword-attacking form and returned to his proper guardian form. He held the big shield in one hand and rushed into the primordial domain. He held the big shield in his right hand and smashed it at Maple's head. Have a taste of my order, sacred shock. Fall into the void. Attack with all your strength. The colorful and dark energy pillars formed by the two sky canopies crashed into the primeval domain, along with the full force attack from the ocean of order. The divine golden energy that burst out from the interior of the primeval domain was the first to fill up the entire domain. Then it was instantly dyed colorful and dark gray by the collision of energy. The last destructive energy from the primeval domain and all the other energy attacks were restrained in the primeval domain. The crystal barrier expanded by tens of thousands of times in an instant and trembled violently. It looked like a balloon that was filled with air and would explode at any time. This is a F*King suicidal attack. When did Lord Hui become a member of my Great Mang's Void Traversers? Green was pressed to the ground, but he did not forget to raise his head and look at the crystal barrier that had become the size of a huge star. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Continue to attack! 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 Break through the void! Throw out all the broken energy towers and energy cores. Throw them out and blow them up. Don't stop. Don't stop. Bang! The entire void shook violently as if it had been hit by a heavy blow. Everyone could feel that they had been hit by a heavy blow from afar. They were all forced to retreat hundreds of feet away as if they were thrown out by a slap. The crystal barrier also exploded from the inside in an instant. All the energy was torn to pieces by an invisible force, making everyone turn pale with fright. The observer's left hand maintained the posture of swinging the sword upward. The guardian was flung out by this unshakable sword. A strange energy pervaded the entire void, making everyone feel the feeling of death hanging in their hearts. Their hearts and souls felt like they were being fiercely pinched. The little angel felt this strange fluctuation, and her pretty face changed slightly. She immediately understood something. Golden light spots began to spread out from her body, turning into a light shadow that rushed towards the source of this death aura. Sinful words. Huey's transparent figure flew out, unable to control himself. He could only shout at the top of his lungs through the soul transmission. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. This is the last blow. Hit him. Hit him. I'm already dead. Remember to bring a bouquet of flowers to visit me in the spiritual temple in a few days. And give me a nicer name while you're at it. Hit him. Condense energy, condense. No. The energy tower and the temple of origin are not responding. No. I can't attack. I can't condense energy. All the energy can't be used. The void is blocked by a strange energy. Is it a spear? An indescribable, strange energy mixed with the chaotic energy that had been raised to the extreme descended. Suddenly, Maple appeared in his sight, raising the netherworld ruin sword in his right hand. With a power that was like the judgment of the great Yuan realm, he swung the sword down at Hui. Shao! Huey's eyes widened as he watched his inevitable death descend. Suddenly, he saw a pair of pure white wings spread out behind Maple. Golden energy particles permeating the air rapidly merged into his soul, causing his dull gray eyes to suddenly tremble. A gorgeous luster suddenly lit up, and it happened in an instant. The netherworld ruin sword that was supposed to land on his body abruptly shifted a little, brushing past his side as it abruptly landed on his body. At the moment of the indescribable energy explosion, the void seemed to have been shattered. An opening of unknown size was torn open. The laws and principles that originated from the source environment poured into the void, causing a series of violent energy anomalies. Hui stared at his left shoulder. Just now, the netherworld ruin sword was 2 centimeters away from rubbing against his body. Huff, huff, huff. He was 2 centimeters away. In recent years, the underworld had probably been too lazy to accept people, especially people like them who had huge capacities. The strange restrictive energy lasted for 2 seconds before suddenly dissipating. Hui immediately jumped up to gather energy. However, as soon as he stood up, he saw Maple holding the netherworld ruin sword and half kneeling on the ground. Huey's face paled. He thought that there would be another round of chaos in the next second, but he only saw Maple using all his strength to hold the netherworld ruin sword and not letting himself fall. His body seemed to be trembling uncontrollably. Thinking back to how the little angel tried desperately to merge himself into Maple's soul, Hui immediately understood. He hurriedly shouted, "Energy tower, gather energy, but don't rush to attack." After saying this, he hurriedly moved closer. His face was full of fear and caution. Maple held the hilt of the netherworld ruin sword tightly in his left hand and half kneeling with his head lowered. His trembling body seemed to be struggling madly. Just as Hui was about to do something, Maple suddenly raised his trembling right hand and turned it over with his palm facing up. Just as Hui thought Maple was about to launch an attack, the void suddenly split open in front of Maple. A pale golden ball of light the size of a human head suddenly rushed out of the crack. The bright light illuminated the dark void. The golden energy particles mixed with the light quickly filled the place with the energy of order. At the same time, there seemed to be an even more mysterious energy spreading out. That is, Sui Ching saw the ball of light and understood. He wants to force the chaotic energy that has taken over his body away. Be prepared. Hui Jun, you are too close. Be careful of the chaotic energy. After the pale golden ball of light fell into his palm, it returned to the heart of Yun Nuoxing. The pale golden light quickly condensed into a thin layer of light on the surface of his body. The chaotic energy that was entangled in his body suddenly surged and was released continuously. However, looking at the situation and the momentum, it seemed like the chaotic energy was being pulled out along with its roots. The chaotic energy that was released from his body completely broke away and quickly condensed into a gray ball of energy the size of a human head. Everyone who saw this ball of energy was shocked. Their hands trembled, and they almost smashed the energy on the ground. Ha ha! Your mental fortitude is beyond my expectations. I didn't think that a little fellow like you would actually be able to persevere for such a long time. You are indeed very interesting. However, I was just playing around this time. If it fails, then so be it. This is nothing. Anyway, it wasn't my idea. Rather than forcing you to join, I would rather have a proper battle. A voice that seemed to be trembling in the chaotic void and mixed with a noise that was difficult to identify by ear rang out in the void. It was a strange sound that was like the remnant rules of countless things that had been destroyed. Everyone was stunned, looking at the gray ball of energy that was constantly rising as if it was about to leave this place. Everyone raised their hands and pressed on the energy tower at the same time. Sui Ching, who was tied up like a maggot, could not suppress his excitement. He jumped up and roared together with Hui Jun, "Beat the hell out of it!" The exploding light of order carried with it an unknown level of resentment and remnant thoughts as it pierced through the void. In an instant, the dark energy ball was drowned in a vast amount of energy. In the void, a dazzling firework blossomed. Amidst the mighty vibrations and vibrations, the curses of countless order warriors could be heard. Ha 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 ha. Is this what you care about in order? Is this where you belong? That's all. Ha ha, it's okay. See you next time. Next time, let's have a good fight again. The gorgeous fireworks bloomed, and the voice that came from the chaotic void gradually faded, leaving behind a lingering echo that slowly dissipated. Chapter 1932. The sudden incident inadvertently revealed a lot of things. For example, even though they were well prepared, they still underestimated the chaos concept bodies. That group of gray creatures would leave behind a cloud of gray smoke wherever they went, as if they wanted the entire void to notice them. For example, a small degraded chaos domain had suppressed their collective power by more than 30%. For example, when a main core of the damage output expressed, "I am willing to join the chaos void," there was actually no one who could replace him. He even had to smash his shield and roll up his sleeves to fight. Forget it. This was an old problem that could not be cured, and there was no cure for it. As for other examples, let's not talk about it for the time being. Everyone was tired, and it would take a long time to talk about it. Now, they could only be glad that things had come to an end safely. Congratulations, congratulations. No, congratulations, my ass. Whether it was the process or the result, it was not peaceful at all. Now, there were still a lot of things to deal with: the delayed origin baptism plan, the delayed inheritor awakening plan, the delayed various origin creation plans, and most importantly, Maple, who had been half-kneeling in the void since the beginning and was trembling all over, had to go and check on his condition first. He had just been forcibly pulled back from the state of willing to join the chaos void, and everyone was afraid that something would happen to him. Maple. Hui ran towards Maple while shouting. He quickly half-knelt in front of him and pressed his hands on his shoulders, his face full of anxiety and worry. "How are you? Are you still conscious? Do you recognize who I am? Are you still thinking about destroying the void? Do you want me to give you—" Don't move." Yin Nuoxing's face was twisted in pain and gloominess. Her eyes, which alternated between gray and colorful, stared at him with a frightening gaze. "Don't move me. My soul, cracked. Cracked chaos. Not cleared. Clean. In the soul, chaos echoes. Moved back a little. Those who had just charged forward felt their scalps go numb when they heard this. They hurriedly jumped back a distance. The Order warriors who were filled with anxiety were busy fixing up the void and the void. When they heard this, they couldn't help but move closer to that side. Yin Nuashing maintained her trembling state for half a minute before she slowly freed her hands and took out a cluster of light from her pendant. The cluster of light was bound by many origin runes and energy runes. The cluster of light had been condensed to an unknown degree and mixed with the origin energy and laws of origin to create a long sword made purely out of light. The rhythm of light. AI Hong Yun's personal sword. He had yet to try using it after obtaining it. Yin Nuashing adjusted the rhythm of light to be less than a meter long. Her trembling hands clenched the hilt of her sword. Everyone felt that something was wrong when they saw her holding the sword. She was holding the hilt of her sword forward and pointing the tip of the sword at herself. Was she going to... Hui understood and paled in shock. Don't! Yin Nuashing clenched his teeth as the long sword made of light pierced through his body in the next second. He frantically urged the origin energy in his body to suppress his entire body and soul. A moment later, the rhythm of light that pierced through his back suddenly turned gray as a thick gray mist gushed out like a fountain, forming a huge gray fan that was probably thousands of miles long and wide behind him. The dense chaos energy made everyone's face pale and cold sweat trickled down their backs. It was not clear whether they were frightened by the observer's suicide or by the massive amount of violent chaos energy that remained even after the energy of the chaos concept body had left. Perhaps it was both. More than half of the people who saw the scene had their minds a little blank. The gray mist gushed out like a fountain for a full minute. All the annihilation energy that was repelled should have stayed in the void, but because the origin energy was also mixed in the mist, the annihilation energy was devoured by the origin energy that rushed out together with the origin energy after it left the body. It was not allowed to stay in the void. When the chaos energy in Maple's body gradually decreased until it completely calmed down, Hui immediately rushed forward and carefully helped him get the rhythm of light out. He then pulled Maple's eyelids to check and found that his eyes had returned to their original colorful color. This guy just fought a battle and committed suicide with his sword. Now, his body was so transparent that it was almost dissipating into a ball of light. And, judging from his trembling appearance, he probably could not move. When he came up, a group of people also rushed forward as if they were watching a critically ill patient. Each of them reached out and pressed on a spot, using various methods to look back and forth for a long while before they all breathed a sigh of relief. There is no remnant chaos energy of the chaos concept body. Sui Qing checked for a while and nodded to everyone before she softly breathed a sigh of relief. She then looked at Maple. It's not a big deal, but your soul has resisted the chaos corruption of the chaos concept body for half an hour. Even you're not lightly injured. You need to rest for a while. Yin Nuashing shuddered and rolled his eyes. Bloody hell, he was not lightly injured. He felt that he was going to split open. We held him down for a while, and after confirming that he was fine for the time being, he could not help but grumble. Are you dumb? You didn't expect a big bomb to be hidden in the corner. What do you think now that you have experienced the Chaos Half-Day Tour? Yin Nuashing continued to roll his eyes. Sooner or later, I will flatten the Chaos Void too. Everyone expressed that the word too was used very eloquently. Rounding it up, it could be said that he wanted to flatten the entire Yuan realm. They suggested that they find the initiator of the previous void, turbulence, to discuss how to carry it out. Or the two of them could carry it out together. After all, the two of them were from the same family. From top to bottom, inside to outside, they were more or less from the same family. It did not matter who carried it out. Everyone who was not at ease surrounded him and checked again. After confirming that there were no mistakes several times, they finally relaxed and breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing that they had relaxed, the Order warriors who were repairing the space and watching at the side also breathed a sigh of relief. It was only at this moment that the tense atmosphere that oppressed the void truly dissipated. The repair of this space became much faster. Hui held Maple and looked around. After finding Jing Yuanji, he hurriedly stuffed a certain someone who was almost transparent into a ball in his hand to her. Take your Lord Maple and find a place to rest. Phew, we'll clean up the mess here. I can still move for the time being. Yin Nuoxing raised his trembling hand. Everyone scolded, shut up. Hui threw a glance at Jing Yuanji. Jing Yuanji quickly nodded. Without saying anything, she carried Lord Maple and left the void that was still being rebuilt. Everyone watched the two of them leave. Only then did they let out a long sigh of relief. Then they rolled their eyes again. This guy was really not human. He had just been beaten up by half of the void front line with 40 to 50% of their combat power for more than half an hour. If it were someone else, they would probably be lying on the ground or rolling into the reincarnation road. He still said that he could hold on for a while. Fortunately, Maple's face was covered in chaos and was not clear-headed. Many of his attacks were not used. Otherwise, today's matter would not be over. We may have to choose between Maple and the void front line. Which one to protect? We covered his forehead with a distressed expression. This was not a joke. If Maple was completely chaotic and in a normal state, he would have already started to choose half an hour ago. It's not that serious. The girl in white shook her head lightly. His soul is guarding the initial light and balancing the chaotic energy. He is never compromised. This is the main reason why he could not exert his full strength. Everyone thought about it and felt that it was true. A certain observer had a lot of deadly skills that he did not use. Even because Hui Jun used his head to block the cannonballs, the most deadly attacks were stopped. Of course, there were still casualties. After all, they were dealing with a chaotic observer. It was impossible to wake him up without paying a price. More than 1,000 people have reported to the spiritual temple. They will recover in a few days. It's not a big problem. I Ching reported from the side. Suddenly, he turned his head with a strange expression. But the remaining 80% are in a heavily injured state. The degree of chaos erosion is different. This may take some time to recover. The source of chaos erosion is the energy of the chaos concept body. The purification process is slow. Everyone was speechless. After all, they were dealing with a chaotic observer. This tragic ratio of casualties was not something that an individual could do. In fact, the most serious damage was actually when they faced the first round of Origin, Chaos head-on. Yes, it was the first round. The full explosion of Origin, Chaos, made everyone suffer. This was the first attack of Origin, Chaos. The attack power was at least 10,000 times worse than the last attack. Even so, it caused countless people to be heavily injured and light injured. More than 1,000 people died. If it were not for the Guardians blocking all the Origin, Chaos at the back, there would not be many people left. Hui pointed at himself and did not know whether to laugh or cry. You have to count me in. I was 2 centimeters away from dying. Everyone turned to look at him. Sui Feng looked at him, who was completely transparent and entangled with a faint gray aura. He could not help but pout. Why don't you go and rest for a while? Look at the monster. The monster is heavily injured. In the end, it was pressed into its own primeval domain to fight Brother Maple. Only you can think of something like that. We all thought that you would die in your own primeval domain. We did not know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head. The last round of Origin, Chaos. If we don't block it, we will all die. How can we think so much? No. We have to block every round of Origin, Chaos. If we don't block it, we will be in big trouble. If it was me, I would have been fine. Because of Maple's rule power, it reduced a considerable part of my attack power. I calculated that I wouldn't die before the primitive domain exploded, but the last strike after the explosion, I would be gone, but I didn't manage to slash it down. Hui said with a lingering fear. This was the closest he had ever been to death. He was only 2 centimeters away from death. But what about the last attack? Brother Lei frowned. He was still in the midst of purifying the chaotic energy, and his injuries were lighter than the other guy who had just entered the void. He was temporarily fine, and did not need to be carried out for purification. Now that he heard Hui Jun mention the last moment, he could not help but think of the last moment, when everyone was unable to attack. Everyone. No one can use energy to attack or defend. What kind of strange restriction is this? That. Hui scratched his head with a distressed look, and the lingering fear on his face deepened a little. Sinful language is the same as the three forms of nothingness. It's an unreasonable power. The latter can be said to be purely destructive. It's completely unreasonable. With a ding sound, the nothingness will be left with countless destroyed wreckage. As for the series of attacks of sinful language, all sides are unreasonable. I've only heard about the specific details from Maple. I've never been hit by this kind of attack before. Today I experienced it personally, and only then did I know why he basically didn't use this move during sparring. Hui briefly told Feng about the sinful language he heard from Maple. He spread his hands and said, "That's what happened." Using the combination of the world's sin and the power of order to launch an attack against order. Sui Feng was dumbfounded. He pulled out a bunch of his hair. It forcibly controlled all of us for 2 to 3 seconds. During those 2 to 3 seconds, we could not attack. Let alone attack, we could not mobilize any energy. If it were not for the remaining primeval domain, we might have been forced into the void to take a bath. If he used origin, chaos at that time, wouldn't we all be dead? This is really unreasonable. Just a second ago, they were standing on the beach, enjoying the sun and the sea breeze. The sea water washed over their feet. But in the next second, the beach turned into a trench. Everyone sank 10,000 meters into the sea and took a bath. If they sank, they would have passed out. If they had passed out, it would have been fine. But what if a meteorite had crashed down on them? When using that attack, we cannot change the form of the attack. It is not something that we can do as we please. Hui shook his head. Oh, I see. So, the effect of sinful language is to attack the order and then force us into the void to stop us for 2 seconds? Sui Feng rubbed his chin. It doesn't feel like anything is wrong. 2 seconds seems to be able to do a lot of things, but it doesn't seem to be able to do anything. Hui glanced at him faintly. You're not the one who's responsible for getting hit. Naturally, you didn't feel anything. The attacks you suffered were all pre-attacks. The most important one was the last attack. Yes, the attack that should have been aimed at me. That attack? Sui Feng rubbed his chin. There was indeed something after that, but he couldn't remember what Feng had said. Sinful language. Owl. What was it again? Sinful whisper. Decapitate. That slash just now. Even if I was in my peak condition, with full defense, and with the support of the entire realm of order, I would still... Huey's face was gloomy as he drew a line across his neck. 1 slash, and I would be killed instantly. Everyone was speechless. No wonder he was yelling about how he couldn't be saved after being thrown out. He wanted to kill Feng as well as him. It turned out that there was such a connection. Sui Feng said this. Are you sure this is not a concept-level attack? They had all seen how tough Hui Jun's defense was when he was in his peak state. If even that level of defense could be killed in 1 hit. There was no concept-level aura. The girl in white shook her head and said in a heavy voice, but it was like an attack launched by the entire Yuan realm. The attack was launched by the sins of the world. It was as heavy as the void itself. Even with a quick glance, I could tell that no concept-level power could defend against that attack. However, I couldn't tell how concept-level power would be like. Hui spread out his hands. Feng himself said that it was very difficult for him to use that attack. Usually, he would only use the first 3 attack methods of sinful language. As for this blade, well, it can only be used in the rule, order, energy form. Moreover, it can only be used in this form when one's strength is pulled to the limit. The restrictions are still quite large. Usually, I don't have the chance to see him use this blade. Once he uses it, then... you guys saw it. I was just a little bit away from death. That girl's interference was slower by 0.00001 seconds, and I would have been lying there. Sui Feng thought for a moment and clapped his hands. I understand now. When fighting Feng, we have to finish it quickly. Everyone looked at him, sweating profusely. Who's the one who wants to finish it quickly? The real sparring session had only ended for less than an hour, and he was already being silly? And he wanted to end the battle quickly? They had almost been finished off quickly. This. Hui coughed dryly and waved his hand to change the topic. Let's not talk about this. Little Qing, continue with the disaster report of this void-level disaster. Everyone's face twitched. Disaster report. It seemed that the loss of control of an observer was classified as a void-level disaster. I Ching coughed dryly and ignored Huey's daily sarcasm. Apart from the casualties, the damage to the energy towers is severe. At least 1/10 of our inventory has been destroyed. 1/10. Give me a rough number. Hui scratched his head, sweating profusely. He was not very sensitive to these numbers now. After the new energy towers were installed, he did not manage the subsequent matters. He was busy with the origin relic and a lot of trivial matters related to it. For the time being, he did not check the inventory of the new energy towers and energy cores. More than 4 billion energy towers and energy cores of the same magnitude. I Ching shrugged and sighed. Against Lord Maple, we mostly used ultimate attacks or self-destruct attacks, which would blow up after a few rounds of attacks. That's why both of them were consumed quickly, and one of the energy towers was completely destroyed in the origin. Chaos. Well, that's it. The Shrine of Origins was not damaged. Everyone was silent. As expected of a void-level disaster, Hui Jun had the foresight. This was indeed a disaster report. Phew! We did not know whether to laugh or cry again. Shaking his head and rubbing his forehead, he said, "Let's recover slowly for now. Sigh, many things have to be delayed because of this incident. It will take at least 100 or 200 days to get back on track. However, because of this battle, we have learned a lot of shortcomings that need to be dealt with quickly, which is a blessing in disguise. Let's just treat it as a rehearsal in advance. In the future, when we face the concept body of chaos head-on, we should be more or less mentally prepared. It's not a bad thing, but something good. I guess it's a good thing. Shortcomings, such as the lack of a way to counter the chaos domain, the imperfect identification of the energy used against their own people, the lack of power of the energy towers, and the fact that they continue to use the first-tier energy towers. I'm so tired. I just fought a tough battle, and I'm even more tired than when I was ganged up on by 20 high-tier primeval a few years ago. Can we not talk about that for now? After all, you were still guarding the front line, so you couldn't cause trouble. I'm used to it. Every time I finished training with him, I just wanted to close the door and lie in bed for 180 days without moving. When I trained with him, I would be sent flying if I didn't concentrate for half a second. What's more, this is a real battle. A large group of us have been jumping around the border of the reincarnation road for more than half an hour. Even if we're still standing here, our spirits and souls may have already rolled into bed and laid down to heal. Look at everyone around us. All of them are full of energy as if they haven't rested for a few eras. If this were to spread out, I'm afraid they would think that we're mistreating our employees. Brother Lei smiled bitterly. I feel like I've just fought a war as long as an era. How is this half an hour? Hey, let's not talk about it anymore. I have to lie down for a while. If I don't lie down, I'll follow in Maple's footsteps and become a ball. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. Hui waved his hand and yawned. He squinted his eyes and looked tired. He finished his words weakly. Let's put other things aside first. For now, let's lower the priority of everything. First, we have to ensure the defense of the Void frontline. Nearly half of our people have major or minor injuries, and they all need to rest and recuperate for 4 to 5 days. It won't be fun if the other side finds an opportunity. Maple doesn't have time to take care of himself now. The front line is full of loopholes now. Everyone thought for a while and nodded. The next short period of time will be very difficult. They had to act to prevent the underworld primeval, whose existence was unknown, from finding out what was going on here. Even if they forced themselves to be alert, they had to act as if the front line was still lively. The Void Patrol team, they should have received the order to come back soon. They can fill the gap in the current defense if they come back, I Ching said. Oh, that's good, Hui said, and suddenly opened his eyes to refresh himself. Hey, so they haven't come back after we've finished fighting inside. Ah, but Maple usually ends things quickly, so it's normal that he didn't hold out until the reinforcements came. All in all, it's only half an hour. I guess everyone is still desperately teleporting on the way and jumping around in the void. Tell them that the crisis has been resolved, and let them return to the void frontline for the time being. Speaking of which, I have to give myself a new name. Hiss, forget it. It's too troublesome. Let's talk about it after I wake up. Everyone watched as a certain guardian staggered away from the void, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. They still remembered that when the guardian took over the battlefield, he said, "If I take a step back today, I won't be called Hui." Indeed, he did not take a step back at the beginning, but at the final blow, he was sent flying so far away by the sin word. Behead attacked SK, let the guardian be troubled by it, although they felt that he would not change his name in the end. At first, they thought that it was a trivial matter without any danger. Purifying someone who had been corrupted by chaos was a trivial matter in everyone's eyes. After all, the frontline and the forces of chaos fought each other every day, and it was normal for them to be corrupted by chaos by accident. Even if the situation was special and the chaos corruption was in the origin, it would only turn from a trivial matter to a slightly more serious matter. But no one had thought that it would end up like this. Chaos concept bodies. Oh, chaos concept bodies, as expected of something that had fought with the gods in the Grand Yuan realm for over 300 eras. Well, he was partly to blame as well. After all, he had faced chaos concept bodies in their era and knew how ridiculous those old foxes were. Back then, when he saw little brother Maple calmly grasping that cluster of chaos energy without feeling anything, he relaxed his vigilance. After all, that cluster of chaos energy did not react at all, remaining quiet and harmless after being sealed by the origin energy. Who would have thought that it would suddenly corrode little brother Maple with a bang? Ah, that's right. Chaos energy that could be considered a creation of the origin or a creature-type life form had not been depleted even after 5 eras. How could it be simple? Tisk, stupid. That's exactly what I meant. Sigh, it was useless to give advice in hindsight. It had already happened. As Hui Jun said, it was better to treat it as a practice session with a weakened version of the chaos concept body. Since the fight was over, they could not treat it as a fight for nothing. Those who could still move had to quickly pack up and sort out the situation of the battle. At the same time, they also had to list out the 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Those who were still carrying a lot of light and heavy injuries had to quickly rest and purify. As for the other things, they could only wait until everyone finished resting and reorganizing. He was not badly injured, but he had been smashed in the face by the origin of chaos. He was also one of the group of people who had been purified by the chaos corrosion. When his sister, Young, and Barbaric Thunder all went to rest, he had to do something. However, he only listed out most of the important things and put them aside until little brother Maple could deal with them when he woke up. They needed the venerable god to personally interrogate them. To put it bluntly, these things needed little brother Maple to personally deal with them. Yes, these inheritors were not reliable anymore. Now they did not even have the slightest psychological fluctuation when they ridiculed themselves. He was finished. If this continued, he would probably be like Hui Jun, slacking off for half a day. As for the rest, he repaired the creation sanctum. After that battle, not only was the creation sanctum seriously damaged, but half of its structure had collapsed. It did not look like much from the outside, but one could see the problem after going inside to check. There were other heirs who could still move apart from him, but everyone was busy acting in the void frontlines. Now that the frontlines were half crippled, it would not be fun if there were emergencies, such as checking the water meter in the underworld. Someone had to stand guard over the place, and other things could only be done by himself. Oh, and of course, there was another laborer in the void frontlines, little green child. He was busier than himself. And in just one day, he saw a little green child going in and out of the creation space and the observer space, running up and down anxiously and hastily. Come to think of it, how is Brother Maple? Sui Feng scratched his head. As expected, He was more worried about Maple, who had just completed his chaos transformation, than anything else. Throughout history, there were countless beings of order that had been directly corrupted by the chaos conceptual entity. Even if the influence was expanded and the corrupted individuals were measured by world clusters or world groups, it was still a mind-blowing matter to count how many things had been corrupted. Under such circumstances, no being of order could revert to their original state after being deeply corrupted by the chaos conceptual entity. It was a miracle that Maple had held onto the initial light and was not forcibly conscripted into the chaotic void. Even so, it was precisely because it was unprecedented that Sui Feng was a little worried. He still had to check on the situation. Node 0, Temple of Origins, Maple's special bed. The name was obviously written by Hui Jun. This place had been covered in dust for a long time. After Maple left the creation sanctum, he had switched to a special bed. But this time, the creation sanctum had blown up, so Jing Yuanji had no choice but to bring Maple here. Standing outside the door, Sui Feng first sensed the situation. There was no barrier blocking the door, no sound of conversation, and the breath of the two beings inside were stable. In short, there was no awkward situation that could be broken through. Sui Feng then carefully opened the door and poked his head inside to take a look. Then, he felt that it was inappropriate and closed the door. Maple was lying on the bed peacefully. Jing Yuanji was lying on the edge of the bed with her head leaning against his head. Seeing the two of them, Sui Feng suddenly seemed to understand why Hui Jun felt so anxious when they talked about him. Of course, before he left, he carefully checked on Maple's condition. He did not feel the chaos energy coming back from the ashes, so he was a little relieved. The rest would wait for the two of them to rest. "How's the big idiot?" Sui Feng was startled by a voice behind him. He quickly turned around and saw 1, 2, 3 for girls standing silently behind him. He did not know when they had appeared, but they all had worried expressions. Sui Feng looked at the 4 of them and said, "Oh, they are, according to Hui Jun, they're Maple's girls. They were all in the Void Patrol team and did not encounter this kind of thing." "Oh, you guys are back." "Yeah, we've been back for a while. After we finished with the things on hand, we immediately came over." Yuan Kong's gaze was fixed on the door. He wanted to go in and take a look, but he was worried that he would disturb the people inside. He hesitated and asked Sui Feng, who had just seen the situation, "The last time we left, everything was fine. How did something like that happen in the blink of an eye?" "It's a bit of a headache. You can wait until he wakes up and then listen to him." Sui Feng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and said, "As for Maple, we haven't found anything out of the ordinary for now. The corroded chaotic energy probably won't recover. The only problem is the problem left behind after the corrosion. The after effects. Does that count as after effects?" He scratched his head and gestured to the girls. He put his palms together and then slowly separated them. "His soul has cracked. Anyone can feel it. It should count as an injury, but we don't know how to deal with it. If he can deal with it himself, then there's no need to worry." "Crack? What does that mean?" "Crack? The big idiot is going to become 2 big idiots?" When Yuan Kong heard this, a dumbfounded expression appeared on his face. The faces of Dao Heaven and the others twitched a few times. That guy's mind and soul had already been damaged to begin with. Now that his soul had split open, wouldn't that mean that his mental illness had worsened? "Ah, that's definitely not what I meant." Sui Feng quickly waved his hand and explained when he saw their weird expressions. "Maple has been resisting the corrosion of the chaos concept body for more than half an hour. The soul under his control and the soul corroded by the chaotic energy each occupied half of the sky. It's like a tug of war, and then his soul cracked." He sighed and looked at the door that had just closed. "It will probably take some time for him to recover. But like I said, I don't know how to deal with it, or even if he can recover. From what I know, I really don't know. As far as I know, there has never been a life of order that could recover after being deeply corroded by the chaos concept body. The venerated gods said the same, and Maple is the first life in history to forcibly break free from the chaos concept body's corrosion." Sui Feng coughed dryly. We have to observe the aftermath. If there's a problem, we can only solve it after we observe it. But now we have to wait for him to wake up since he's exhausted. It's fine if you want to visit him, but be careful not to disturb the patient. His soul had just entered slumber not long ago. After watching Sui Feng leave the Temple of Origin, Qing Yu looked at the scene outside the window where countless flashes of energy were erupting. After a while, she turned to Yuan Kong and asked calmly, "Shall we go and take a look?" Yuan Kong looked at the tightly shut door and then at the scene outside the window where the energy was exploding. The flashing fireworks lit up the corridor, but the temple was silent. She looked out of the window for a while and then suddenly turned back. Her yellow dress swayed, leaving a long shadow. She gently pushed the door open and entered. Chapter 1933. The large room was quiet, and the curtains were drawn close to the open window. Outside the window was an ordinary courtyard with no decorations, and the sky was filled with flashes of energy. It was the result of countless energy explosions in the realm of order. Even when the light shone into the room, it wasn't blinding, and the sound of energy explosions couldn't be heard either. It was as if the room was completely isolated from the outside world. The door was gently pushed open, and 4 figures carefully entered the room. They looked around and fixed their eyes on the bed. There were 2 people here, but there was only the sound of breathing and heartbeat. Even if they were used to energy life forms being different from other life forms, it still made them shudder every time they saw this. It made them feel as if the person lying there wasn't a living person, but an empty body. Yuan Kong and the other 3 cautiously moved closer to the bed and glanced at Jing Yuanji together. They sighed in their hearts, and then shifted their gazes to the person lying quietly on the bed without any signs of life. Really, she was as quiet as a corpse. It was strange. Yao Guang carefully looked at the person on the bed, and then turned to Yuan Kong and the others who were frowning slightly. He lowered his voice and asked, "How is Brother Feng?" "I didn't see anything unusual. After all, we just finished up. The big idiot should have already dealt with part of it, so I couldn't see anything." Yuan Kong shook her head and poked the big idiot's forehead a few times with her slender finger. Her brows furrowed slightly. His soul really did split into 2. It's very obvious. There's no need to check at all. It was like tearing a piece of paper in the middle, but it wasn't completely torn. It was more than half torn from top to bottom, and the remaining part was still intact. It was just that it wasn't completely torn apart, only a part of it. Apart from that, something seems to be moving. Yuan Kong bent down and put her forehead on the big idiot's forehead. After a while, she frowned and muttered, "It's strange. On the surface, it looks like the soul is completely asleep, but when I look deeper, I can feel that it's in an active state. There's something moving in the depths of the soul. It has the big idiot's own presence, and some other strange presence." Dao Yin's pretty face darkened, and his voice was grave. Could it be chaos? That shouldn't be the case. Didn't Sui Feng say that he had already checked the area, and that the corrosive chaotic energy showed no signs of reviving? It shouldn't be that chaotic energy. But he didn't come in to check carefully, and that's the energy of the chaos concept body, not the ordinary chaos energy that we're familiar with. Even if he's an inheritor, it's impossible for him to look so carefully from the outside. Big Brother is also a troublesome guy. Who knows if something special will happen again? Dao Heaven pinched his platinum hair and shook his head. Besides, he likes to trigger special situations. Yuan Kong and the other 2 suddenly felt that what she said was very reasonable, so much so that they could not refute it at all. A certain troublesome fellow, even if he encountered ordinary things, under the influence of his own stubbornness, the ordinary things would become very unusual. Trespassing into the territory without permission, he would encounter trouble from the origin or chaos. Common sense was an inexplicable thing when it came to him. He and the things that happened to him could not be explained by common sense. "What should we do?" Qing Yu asked calmly. "Check. Or should we go and find him? The others in the front line are still busy. After all, they have just fought a tough battle." Yuan Kong sighed and looked at the images of the battle between the Guardian and the big idiot. Although the big idiot was muddle-headed and could not use his full strength, it was still a tough battle for them. I don't think everyone has the time. Well, let's go and have a look. Qing Yu, Dao Heaven, and Yao Guang all tilted their heads and said in unison, "Go and have a look." Of course, there's an unknown active movement in the depths of the soul. Naturally, we have to go there to check what's going on. We can't see anything from the outside, but the big idiot soul is very deep. If we want to see what's going on, we have to go there ourselves. Yuan Kong nodded and began to prepare. Qing Yu blinked. But if we go into the soul, it's okay. Yuan Kong waved her little hand nonchalantly and grinned at them. The big idiot is not guarded. Just treat it as your own home and go in. Haven't all of you been in there before? What's there to be afraid of? Dao Heaven. Although Big Brother's like that, I think Big Brother will beat you up if you describe his soul world as a public place. Family area? What public place? Don't worry, it's okay. If he wants to beat me up, he has to wake up first. Yuan Kong continued, waving her hand, and pressed her other hand on the big idiot's forehead. The power of the soul surged and wrapped all four of them. Then, hold on tight. We're going in. Yao Guang shrank his neck. I'm not mentally prepared. Don't worry. I have experience in this. We won't find him immediately after we go in. It's not too late to prepare yourself on the way. Even if you don't prepare yourself, there won't be a problem if you rush into his face. Yao Guang. There was a lot of gray dust floating in the air, as if something had been burned by a big fire. The residue drifted far away with the wind and spread to every corner little by little, staining the space. It seemed that the pollution was very serious. Above their heads, the clear sky was covered by a thick layer of haze, dividing the sky into two distinct boundaries. On the left was a gloomy land covered by haze and dark clouds, while on the right was still a clear blue sky with the sun shining high in the sky. There was not a single cloud under the high blue sky, which was in direct opposition to the thick haze on the left. No one had crossed the boundary, but everyone wanted to devour the other. He subconsciously looked at the sky and slowly lifted his feet on the ground. He walked forward casually as if he was taking a stroll. The cracked earth was constantly changing from brown to gray. However, it was not that he would see the earth gradually crack and turn gray if he kept walking forward. Just like the two skies above him that were covered by a haze and a blue sky at the same time, the earth also tended to be aligned to the left and right. If he turned around and walked to the blue sky on the right, the earth would gradually recover from the cracks in a few minutes and be covered by grass, vegetation, and trees. In a few minutes, it would seem that he had walked into a forest and would be drowned by countless green leaves. As he walked forward, he could see mountains and mountains rising from the ground. The plains were gradually divided and occupied by many terrains. But on the other hand, if he continued to go deeper into the haze, the dead gray color would exaggeratedly cover his entire vision in just a minute. The sky was only left with darkness, and the earth was covered with a strange dead gray color. The ash and gray dust floating in the air gradually increased. The earth was also clearly divided into left and right sides. He walked on the border and moved forward little by little. The border was a barren land that all life instinctively stayed away from. The heavy haze that shrouded the sky clearly told all life to stay away from this place. Indeed, no life would come here. The only life in his spiritual world were some small animals. Just now, a little bird stood on his shoulder and followed him. But as he came to the border and stepped into this place, it finally could not stand the atmosphere and hurriedly returned to the world under the blue sky. His nonchalant footsteps paused for a moment, and an aura of silver and black intertwined with each other appeared in the air before him. Chrysalis began to condense into a ball, and in just 2 seconds, it expanded to 1,000 feet in size. He casually grabbed the Netherruin sword that was floating beside him and casually swung it forward. He didn't even need to release any energy to tear apart a ball of silver and black mist that had just condensed into a ball in front of him. The exploding cloud quickly dissipated, and his vision returned to the barren land in front of him. Yin Nuashing exhaled softly. He let go of a Netherruin sword and let it float beside him. With a wooden expression, he lifted his feet and continued to walk along the border. His colorful eyes were slightly listless as he looked at the distant blue sky. "What are you doing?" Suddenly, a voice came. The voice was like a mixture of dozens of noisy noises, making it even more disturbing. He could not tell the emotion of the voice, whether it was male or female, and there was no target around him that could make the voice sound. It was as if the voice rang from the soul, echoing in his mind. He heard the voice clearly, but he did not intend to stop and pay attention to it. He had heard the meaningless voice countless times. At first, he tried to respond, but then he found that the messages conveyed by these voices were all disconnected and aimless. It was like chatting, but the chatter was all about logic, and it was likely to cut off the topic at any time and start to talk nonsense. In the end, he did not even know where the topic was, and it was just saying something to annoy him. In a word, lunatics. He did not need to pay attention to them. He was used to them. Their voices often echoed in his mind. Usually, he used a concept space to restrain them, lest these lunatic voices would nag him. But in this case, there was no way to restrain them. They had to nag for a while after he used the language of sin, although he had only used it once, and he had almost been killed. Perhaps it was because he had used the language of sin under the influence of the chaotic concept body that the cleaning up of garbage this time seemed so long. While he was in a daze, the gray clouds and silver-black clouds began to gather in front of him again. Not long after he walked out, another cloud appeared. This time, he didn't let his mind wander for too long. Before the clouds could form and expand, he picked up the nether void sword and swept them clean with a single slash. It's so noisy. This world is boring and meaningless. It was not wrong to be noisy. This world itself was noisy, but who cared about the meaning? Meaning or not, was it not a question of life giving? He had said this many times. Could he change the topic? Also, rationally speaking, this nagging voice of yours was even noisier. If he could be quieter, he would feel that it would be a lot quieter. Although he did not open his mouth to respond, the voice sounded from his soul. Even if he muttered in his stomach, it would still be a response. Yes, he was responding to the voice again. But it was not a big problem. After all, they would calm down after a while. As the garbage was cleaned up, the frequency of their voices would also decrease, and finally return to normal. After a while, you have become more human-like. Why? Have you started to grow in the world? Sorry, he had lost his personality. He was a huge lunatic. The most important thing in the void was to force him. He had no emotions and no humanity. Among your countless eyes, which one of you used to judge that a human-like person would think of slashing the entire void of order every day? Should I drag him out and give him a treatment? Sure enough, it was still a neurotic speech, and he should not have paid attention to it. He should use less of the language of sin in the future. Every time he used it, he would have to listen to them rambling on, which was very annoying. It was as if they were gathering in his head, with tens of millions of lies opening their mouths at the same time and blabbering on endlessly. In fact, he had already filtered out a lot of the voices, otherwise it would only be noisier here and turn the world upside down. He actually did not like the sinful language series of skills. It was an attack that used the sins of the world and the power of order. Although it was useful, the effect on him was also unforgettable. The blabbering in his soul was just a small side effect. Compared to the overall effect, it was only slightly worse than being bitten by a mosquito. Every time he used the sins of the world, they would go on a rampage in his body and soul. It was as if they were going to tear him apart from the inside. Whether he was a celestial god or an Empyrean god, this feeling had never subsided. It was the same even now. However, the pain from the inside could be slightly reduced or restrained. If you don't like it, can't you just not use it? I didn't want to use it, but it came to me anyway. It was nestled in my body and soul, occupying a part of my space, and I couldn't drive it out. I had to let it play a role, just like collecting rent. Although I didn't want to, this thing was really useful, wasn't it? In dealing with the current trouble, this power was indispensable. How could I be willing to give it up when I had such extraordinary power? Before the world returned to peace, I would never consider giving up my power. Silver-black clouds suddenly gushed out from the cracked ground around him. It was as if he had run into a cloud. Because it was too sudden, his reaction was a little too quick. He almost used the power of the Netherworld Ruined sword. With a sweep of his sword, the entire space suddenly exploded with hundreds of small fireworks. The ground trembled for a moment. Countless rocks on the cliff to his left broke apart and fell down. The sound of the rocks hitting the ground could not be heard for a long time. It's dangerous. Dangerous? I'm used to it. It's just that cleaning up the garbage is a little loud. It's nothing. Anyway, even if I run into the sins of the world now, it's not a big deal. I've already passed the time of the sin word's influence. I'm just cleaning up now, so it won't affect me much. Hey, do you take me for a fool? You actually said that I'm annoying. The danger I'm talking about isn't this danger. He thought for a moment and continued to walk forward with a blank expression. This time, he did not even bother to respond. Wait for me. Don't walk so fast. Walk slower. Are you pretending that you didn't hear me? He did not. He heard it very clearly. He just wanted to walk faster. Staying at the border was not fun. This place was barren and boring. If he did not deal with it quickly, it would be another big problem. There was another big problem on the other side. Seriously, after being pushed into the chaos by the chaos concept body to wash his face, he just wanted to have a good rest. Don't walk so fast if you want to rest. Hey, walk slower. Listen to me. I already said that I heard you. I won't be silent anymore, all right? I really heard you. It's so annoying. Why is the sound so annoying today? Why is the frequency so much higher? He did not continuously use incriminating words, and he did not rush into the high-risk area. Speaking of which, the initial high-risk area of the explosion had already been cleared, so it should not be so fast, right? Also, this sound, why did it sound like something was not right? It doesn't seem to be so crazy anymore. Big idiot. Yin Nuashing was stunned when he heard the unbearable voice and the sudden impact on his back. He quickly recovered from his stupefied, absent-minded, and dazed state. When he turned his head, he saw a figure hanging on his back and panting heavily. He looked back and saw Dao Tian, Qin Yu, and Yao Guang running toward him. Considering the speed at which he walked, just now, he felt that these girls might not be able to catch up with him. They were panting from running. Pulling the figure on his back in front of him, Yuan Kong was panting and rolling his eyes at him. Phew, you big idiot. I almost died from running. How can you be so absent-minded when walking? Yin Nuashing, because I really didn't expect that someone would come here at this time. Let's not talk about this. Come here first. This place is not fun for you. Yin Nuashing hurriedly pulled the few girls, who were out of breath from running behind, in front of him. The surging origin energy condensed into a barrier to cover the four of them. Only then did he see that their expressions were slightly better. The atmosphere in this place can even affect the heavenly god of the beginning. Don't leave my side. Yin Nuashing looked at the four girls who could not wait to sit down and rest. He tilted his head and scratched it. How did you guys come in? Yuan Kong rested for a while, and when he caught his breath, he said, Phew, we received an emergency order and rushed back from the orderly void. But by the time I got back, you guys had already finished fighting. I had to come over to see what you had done for a while. When I came in, I felt that your soul was not at peace, so I took the opportunity to come in. So what exactly happened? You were just staying in the observer space. How did you get corrupted by the chaos concept body? Yin Nuashing's pretty face frowned helplessly. It's a long story, actually. After briefly explaining the cause and result, the four of them let out a long "oh," and their expressions changed. Yuan Kong could not help but say, Who told you to bring people home randomly? This time, something finally happened, right? That's definitely not the reason. God knows that old fox. In the end, after dealing with it, you were corrupted by the chaos concept body. Not only did you almost tear down the creation sanctum, but in the end, the little girl doesn't even know you. Yuan Kong ignored his quibbling and said, Big loss, big idiot. Yin Nuashing was speechless. From all aspects, he could not deny that it was a big loss. The situation this time was indeed a big loss, and it would be even worse if it got worse. If he did not hold himself in one part, it would not be as simple as tearing down the creation sanctum. That would be the beast that had escaped the cage, collapsing the front line of the void, and after that, the void of order would be gone. Seeing the big idiot's haggard, helpless, and powerless face, Yuan Kong did not say those words. He reached out and patted him on the shoulder and said with concern, "We saw your soul split open. Are you okay? How's the situation now?" "No, not good at all. To be honest, I have a headache." Yin Nuashing scratched his head in distress. The backlash of the sins of the world is still okay. It's almost cleaned up. Now, the most troublesome thing is still the chaos concept body. It might not feel much if I just say it directly. Come with me and you'll know. Don't go too far away from me. He sighed softly and turned to lead the way towards the hazy land. The four girls looked at each other for a while and followed closely behind the barrier made of origin energy, not daring to step out of the range. The border was a short distance away from the cliff on the left, and it was a little deeper into the hazy land. Thick ashes and dust were blown in front of them, as if gray and silver-black dirty snow were floating between heaven and earth. When the snowflakes fell on the energy barrier, they would collide and create energy sparks of various sizes, and the dense numbers made the entire barrier light up repeatedly. Intuitively, Yuan Kong and the others felt that these snowflakes did not have any destructive power, but it still made their scalps tingle. Their survival instincts told them not to touch these darn things as much as possible. Yuan Kong quickly pulled his hand and carefully pointed at the scene of countless snowflakes blowing in front of them. "Big idiot, what are these snowflakes?" She could not help but ask. "It's a phenomenon caused after I used the sins of the world. Its essence is the diluted sins of the world, and it's one of the main ways they spread and corrode my soul. The cracked land you just saw was also affected by the erosion of these snowflakes." Yin Washing extended his hand out of the barrier, and some suction force appeared from his palm, attracting some of the broken snow that floated past to the top of his hand. The broken snow that was flying in the air spun, releasing a silver-black aura, and it seemed to be mixed with dark clouds and some faint, very faint green air currents. It seems to be mixed with two other things. Qing Yu looked at the snowflakes floating and spinning in his palm and was a little lost in thought. One is the annihilation energy of the chaotic conceptual body, and the other thing is neither good nor bad, but its existence weight is similar to the sins of the world, and both have the weight of the primordial realm. According to the primordial god and the others, the commotion caused by them is more annoying than the sins of the world. The sins of the world only pour out endless negative emotions on everything, but they can use countless consciousness that covers all emotional states to nag people until they're stupid. Well, I have never seen them cause trouble. After all, they seem to be in a state of being completely suppressed by me. Yin Nuashing waved his hand to disperse the snowflakes floating in his hand. Yuan Kong tilted her head in a daze. "What's that?" "The Sea of Consciousness. You probably haven't heard of it before. Just listen to it for a while. I don't know where to start with a specific explanation because it's very troublesome." Yuan Kong and the others all tilted their heads with question marks on their faces. Indeed, they had never heard of it before, and it sounded like a very troublesome thing. Yin Nuashing led them forward and skipped the topic. "Every time I use the power of the sins of the world, my soul will be damaged a little. Of course, it's not permanent damage, but I have to spend some effort to deal with it afterward. If I deal with it normally, it would have been done a long time ago. But this time, as Qing Yu said, due to some special reasons, the sins of the world, the annihilation energy, and the sea of consciousness are all entangled, and it's very troublesome to clean it up. The entanglement of the latter two is still manageable, as their main bodies have been suppressed again. Now, there are only remnants in the soul, and they won't rise from the ashes, so what's left is also the most important." Yuan Kong's pretty face changed. "Is there still remnants of annihilation energy in your body?" Should I say that it's the remnants of annihilation energy? Or, Yin Nuashing's pretty face wrinkled like a walnut, and her face was conflicted. Just take it that there are remnants of annihilation energy, but due to some special reasons, this remnant energy is not in the standard cloud-like state that you know, but, we're here. You'll understand when you see it with your own eyes. He stopped talking and led the girls to the edge of the cliff, and when they turned their eyes, they had already seen something in advance. They saw something like a sunken opposite shore, a cliff and a cliff. When they reached the edge of the cliff, all of them held their breaths. Before them was a grayish-white rift valley that was probably almost 10,000 feet wide. There is no telling how deep the rift valley was, but the bottom and the cliffs on both sides of the valley kept releasing large clumps of snowflakes that resembled ash. Most of them were churning and swirling in the middle of the valley, with only a few being swept up by the strong winds and drifting in all directions. Yin Nuashing pointed at the rift valley and said softly, "That's the rift. It's the scar that you saw on my soul. It's a conceptual damage left behind by the concept class power of the chaos concept body, although only a small part of its essence is inclined towards conceptual damage. It's probably because there wasn't much power left after 5 eras, and it's not exerting enough. It's much calmer compared to when it first appeared, and now it's just a remnant after the concept class power finished its destruction and gradually calmed down. That is to say, this is the remnant of annihilation energy that you know, although it's now a rift." Chapter 1934. The gigantic crack that filled one's vision was like a strait that spanned across the ocean. From left to right, one couldn't see the end of it. However, the strait wasn't filled with seawater that smelled like the ocean. Instead, it was filled with a bunch of disgusting things that would make all life forms of order vomit or cry out in pain. If this stuff was poured into the ocean, no matter which planet or what type of planet it was, it would turn into a small spark in the sky in less than 2 days. Moreover, it would be a spark that was dyed gray. The surging wind under the hazy sky was also mixed with the aura of the annihilation energy that tore order apart. Just by listening to the wind, they could feel that the wound was starting to spread from their ears. It was weird. Yin Nuashing explained as she saw them subconsciously touching their ears as if they were hurt. Most of the concept class power in the fissure has subsided, but the remnants are still active. Their movements and the things they have done before will make you think that the attack is still going on, and the attack this time is aimed at you. But don't worry. The weak concept class power can be forcefully stabilized with the origin energy. The remaining concept class power has been severely depleted and will not be able to cause much trouble. That part comes from your senses. You can deal with it and press it down. Don't worry too much about it. Yuan Kong's attention fell on the left end of the rift. There was no annihilation energy near the end of the rift. She pulled the big idiot to the end and asked, "Is that where the rift begins?" "There's no chaos energy there. The beginning is indeed there, but the place you see is very far away from the end. As for why there is no chaos energy, that is because it has been purified before you came." Yin Nuashing stabbed the floating nether void sword into the ground and opened the origin energy barrier. She stretched her arms and legs a little. "We have almost reached the place where the purification is needed. I pulled you guys over to have a look and do the purification." "How do we purify?" As soon as Yuan Kong said that, she saw the big idiot dashing out of the origin energy barrier and plunging into the big crack. They held their breaths as they watched. He had just deactivated his chaos form not long ago, and now he was jumping in again. "Don't leave there. Don't worry about me." Just as Yuan Kong was about to hurry over, the voice that echoed in their ears made them stop in their tracks stiffly. In just 1 or 2 seconds, Yin Nuashing had already plunged into the surging, broken snow and disappeared. The next moment, the broken snow that had been obediently guarding its own domain suddenly became very agitated and began to surge violently. A strong tremor came from the entire crack. The dark energy surged in the depths of the crack. The dark energy aura became inexplicably excited and became irritable. The strong aura kept surging and had already spread to where Yuan Kong and the others were. The strange aura that rushed toward them made them have a bad feeling and subconsciously take a step back. The dark clouds and snowflakes in this area seemed to be attracted by the things that had fallen inside. A storm was stirred up in the rift, and everything in the rift was rapidly converging as if they had met their own kind. Seeing this scene, Yuan Kong seemed to understand what the big idiot was doing. Hundreds of ideas popped up in his mind at once, and some of them even extended very far away. He saw a lot of results. Anyway, none of them were good results. Just as she was considering if she should immediately leave with Dao Heaven and the others and report to the front line, the storm that was gathering madly in the rift suddenly disappeared. As a gust of wind blew, the vision suddenly became much clearer and clearer. It was no longer as dark as before. The gray clouds and snow in the rift below disappeared in an instant, leaving only the remaining snow floating upward. However, they would also completely disappear in a few seconds, and there would be no follow-up. Everything in the rift had been cleared, and it now looked like a huge grayish-white rift valley. At a glance, they still couldn't see how deep it was. If they widened their eyes, they could see faint white clouds and colorful energy flowing at an unknown depth in the rift valley. The two were moving around in the depths of the rift valley, intersecting, touching, and merging with each other to form a net that connected the two cliffs on both sides. This colorful net could be seen in the depths of the rift valley, and it seemed to extend from the beginning to the point where it would touch the chaotic energy again before stopping. There seems to be a net down there, made of origin energy. Do you see it? Dao Heaven pointed at the depths of the rift valley. I see it, but I don't know what it's used for. Yuan Kong had a strange expression, something that appears immediately after the purification. It should have something to do with this rift valley, right? Oh, be more confident. Remove the should. That net is used to repair this rift valley, but even with origin energy, it would take a long time to reconnect it. After all, it is a conceptual scar left behind by a chaotic concept body. Even if it is not particularly deep, it would still take a lot of effort to treat and a lot of time to heal. The voice that came from beside them changed its tone, carrying a noise that sounded like the remnants of destruction left in the void. Yuan Kong and the others quickly turned their heads, and what they saw made them widen their eyes and pale faces. They shuddered and hurriedly shrank into a ball. The person who had just jumped down had already jumped back up, but now, her long gray hair, her eyes had lost their colorful luster and were dyed with the color of chaotic energy. The chaotic energy on her body was also in a very active state, as if she was in a state of chaos, which frightened them so much that they almost immediately adjusted themselves to combat mode. Oh, don't worry. Yin Nuoxing waved her hand nonchalantly when she saw how worried and bewildered they were. I have chaos energy myself, and as long as order and rules aren't pulled over, there's no problem. The remnant annihilation energy doesn't have the effect of corroding order and rules, which is why you can put down the hundreds of thoughts that are swirling in your heads. When Yuan Kong heard this, he looked at the big idiot again. The big idiot seemed normal. Yuan Kong cautiously moved closer, but didn't dare to get too close. When he looked into the big idiot's gray eyes, he was slightly startled and took 2 steps back. After adjusting the distance between them and the big idiot, he felt safe and said, "Didn't you say purify? You just purified it like that?" "That's right. I touched the 3rd type of annihilation energy after being corroded by the chaos concept body." Yin Nuoxing had one hand on his waist while the other hand spread out and flipped upwards. Chaos energy was churning in his palm as he looked at the dark energy with a helpless expression. It's this energy of annihilation. Compared to using the origin energy to cleanse it with a bombardment, it's much simpler and more convenient to just go down and collect it. However, we can't do too much at once, or the 100-odd tenants would have a problem with that. That's why we have to deal with it bit by bit. Even if we use the origin energy to cleanse it, we still have to deal with it bit by bit. You just said that there's a faint remnant of concept class power. Oh, didn't I make myself clear? Yun Nuashing tilted his head and pointed at the rift valley below. The remnant of concept class power is this rift valley. After it settled a little, it became a scar and was fixed here. The chaos energy flowing in the rift valley is just a small part of it that leaked out, while its most important main body solidified into this rift valley. That net you see is used to process this rift valley, and it will take some time. The four of them seemed to understand what he meant on the surface, but did not quite understand why it was like that. Yuan Kong pondered for a long time before simply speaking. I understand, but it's not within the scope of understanding. Was concept class power? Yin Noashing looked left and right before pulling out the nether void sword and simply walked along the edge of the rift valley. If they kept walking along the edge of the rift valley and entered the area where the annihilation energy remained, they would come into contact with a lot of snowflakes and would have to work hard to hold up an energy barrier. But when they walked along the edge, they had already pushed down the intersection point between the sins of the world and the sea of consciousness, and what was left were just isolated and helpless defeated soldiers. Now that their numbers had been reduced from the root, the number of snowflakes that floated out was not much of a hole, and after a while, the number of snowflakes would obviously decrease and would basically not float out, settling in the Rift Valley and not matter where they walked. It was just a hassle. But now that the four of them had come, and they had to hold up a barrier to move forward, well, it didn't matter. Concept class power. To be honest, I can't really give you an answer now. I don't know the specifics. Yun Nuashing tugged at his long gray hair and pondered as he walked. I can barely explain a part of the answer. First of all, concept class power is not some sort of energy or energy-like object like the power of order and the power of rules. Concept class power is you can treat it as a classification of power, just like the classification of power of rules. Yuan Kong could feel the movement of the chaos energy in the big idiot's body slowly diminishing and cautiously approached. It's a form of power? Yes, it is a form of power. At present, there are only two groups of people who have mastered this form of power. Yin Noashing pointed above her head, and the four girls immediately understood. Order was the god of origin, and chaos was the chaos concept body. These two groups of beings were the root of existence, and they were the only ones who had mastered concept class power. As for the specific changes in this form, as well as what exactly is different about this form, I really can't say for sure. However, it's definitely true that my firepower has become stronger. Isn't it all for the sake of gaining a greater understanding of the truth by changing my physical strength and energy? The four girls were speechless. That was the truth. Then those concept creations that you made before and concept class power shouldn't have anything to do with it, right? From what I know, there should be a little bit of connection, but not much. Yin Nuashing folded her arms. No matter if it's concept creations or concept class power, they are all related to concepts. This is definitely true. It's just that there's a huge difference between the two. Concepts themselves exist there, and concepts are concepts. They have nothing to do with the existence of these 2-foot things. In order to simply explain the situation that I know, I'll use a simple analogy. Let's say that a concept is a volcano. You can think of those concept creations that we made before as using the volcano as a barbecue. You can think of all the things that we've talked about in the past as how we're planning to dig a hole and plant a tree on the volcano. As for concept class power, as I said just now, it's a form of power. With this form of power, you can carry the volcano and run. Or you could become a volcano yourself. The four girls were speechless. It was a simple and crude analogy. They understood the gap and difference between them. They understood that the former was borrowing the power of concepts, while the latter was treating oneself as a concept. At least, they were on the same level and could directly interfere and influence concepts. However, they just didn't understand what concept class power was. I don't understand it either. Even a high-level primeval might not be able to explain it clearly. When I talked to the heavenly god of origin and the others last time, we didn't talk about this, so I'm not sure. Yun Nuashing shrugged. But even if we talk about it, it's useless. We can't use it. Even if we talk about it, we can't use it. Even if we talk about it, we can't use it. Even if we talk about it, it's pointless to talk about it. We can't reach that threshold now, so we can just maintain our knowledge of concept class power at the level of knowing. There's no need to waste time and effort to pursue more, because it's just a waste of energy. Dao Heaven blinked his beautiful eyes and suddenly came forward. He smiled and poked Hao Ren's face with his slender finger. Oh, even Big Brother who's good at creating miracles can't do anything about it? Yin Nuashing turned his head and stared at Dao Heaven gloomily. He spread his hands and sighed. Hard course level is not high enough. He has me in a tight grip. I really can't do anything about it. Well, there's still time. Maybe in the future, we can find a way to forcibly use concept class power. Well, let's talk about it when the time comes. If we can really use that power, well, we'll just pay a price. Either we make our already weird self even weirder and more colorful, or we'll just die 20 or 30 times. That should be enough to pay for it, right? The four girls shuddered when they heard that. What kind of nonchalant and plain words were used to say such frightening words? It was as if he wanted to die. Feeling the weird silence of the four girls, Yin Nuashing turned his head slightly and saw their pale faces. He shrugged. I don't care. No, it would be a lie to say that I don't care. Who likes to die for no reason? Even if I know that there's a spiritual temple next to me and I could do sit-ups in the coffin, the pain when I die is still very real. Whether it's the pain when I'm killed or the pain when I die, it's all very real. If I have to say the real reason, it should be no way. The price. If every price that has come true is calculated as money, I'm either in debt or rich. I've either overdrawn too much or accumulated too much. Yuan Kong shook his head to get rid of his pale face. Big idiot. A normal life shouldn't always talk about death. It sounds scary. That's strange. Yin Nuashing seemed to have heard something funny and could not help but laugh. There are still people who treat me as a normal person in this day and age. The four girls were speechless. This guy had already engraved his crazy state into his soul. He had already told everyone from his soul that he was not a normal person. There was no way to reverse this thinking. After cleaning up the chaotic energy leaking from another node and constructing the big net at the bottom, Yin Nuashing breathed a sigh of relief. He stood on the rift and looked into the distance with the four girls. The rift still had no end in sight. It seemed that there was still a very long distance to deal with. The part that had been dealt with behind them was gradually disappearing at the end of their sight. Yin Nuashing stood on the spot for a while and took a break before continuing the previous topic. I'm not a normal thing in the first place. Up until now, I'm just an unidentified individual who has been given the name of a race, plucked out of the void, and formed a class of my own, yet I still don't know what I am. While I like a certain degree of uniqueness, it's more or less a headache to be so special that it's essentially unique. Still, it's just what I want now. For me, who has reached the end of my path of cultivation, the remaining path forward is completely laid out before me. It's almost as if it's declaring that I've done everything I can to reach the limit. Even if I had some misgivings before and chose not to immediately reach the end, now that I've come this far, I should move on without any misgivings. At a time like this, when I'm showing my own limits, there's suddenly a vague path, a dusty path that can't reveal what's in front of me, and I need to explore it bit by bit. For me, this is great news. It means that I can raise my upper limit again. What is the new path? Yuan Kong asked curiously. The path of this body's essence. Dao Heaven tilted his head. The path of an energy life form? Didn't you say that it would take a lot of effort to go forward, and you might not even be able to find the correct direction? Even if you found it, it doesn't mean that you can step on it whenever you want. Big brother, have you found the new path ahead? Yin Nuashing was stunned for a moment. After thinking for a while, he said, Yeah, so many things have happened recently. I keep thinking that a long time has passed. Everyone should have been exposed by those big mouths. Because you all often wander around the void of order and rarely come to the observer space, I did not tell you about this. Yin Nuashing stroked his chin and said softly to the four, Have you heard of quasi-nothingness and primordial derivative? The four girls, question mark. All right, he was just joking. It was quite interesting to see their collective, dumbfounded expressions. Asterisk cough cough asterisk after the joke. It was time for a serious explanation. The four of them let out a long oh. Then, Yuan Kong suddenly understood what he meant. So that's what you meant when you said those weird words just now. So that's what it means to not be a human. Even though I know you've been nagging about not being a human for a long time, I didn't expect that one day you're finally not being a human anymore. Yin Nuashing rolled his eyes and patted her head. When it comes to my essence, no matter how far I have come, it is actually under the condition of disguise. It could be said that this body has never seriously explored the path of essence since the beginning. So, this is a new path covered in dust. Heaving a sigh of relief, he turned around and looked down at the new node of the Rift Valley that was covered by the energy of chaos. His eyes flickered. After being corrupted by chaos this time, I have inadvertently understood something about the nature of things. I seem to know how to deal with it. Consider it a blessing in disguise. Lord Hui and the others emphasized that this is a void-level disaster in their report. Yao Guang stuck his tongue out. A disaster caused by the chaos conceptual entity. Although it was caused by my hand, it is still a void-level disaster. There is nothing wrong with that. Yin Nuashing shrugged. It is a void-level disaster. Since it has happened, we cannot treat it as a simple attack. We have to find ways to make up for the losses from this disaster. Whether it is a breakthrough in some aspect when dealing with a disaster, or a sudden flash of inspiration when dealing with it, is a good factor to make up for it. For example, after this battle, some of the shortcomings of the Void frontline against the Chaos conceptual entity were revealed. It would have taken 80 to 100 years to come up with it, but now we know after a fight. Then, counting myself, I have figured out some of the more important things and have a general idea of what to do. With these two factors, the disaster this time wasn't too bad. The path of essence, Understanding one's own essence was like what ordinary people said about understanding oneself, and also like the saying, the one who understands oneself the most is not necessarily oneself. Walking on the path of essence was actually very easy to get lost. This was especially true for life forms that bound their consciousness, soul, and spirit to a specific object. No matter what, material life forms had a harder time understanding themselves and exploring their essence compared to energy life forms. But while it was difficult, it was easier than walking to the limit. Just like the limit he mentioned, physical life forms' exploration of essence was not particularly high, but it was too easy for them to reach it compared to energy life forms. As for energy life forms, their own characteristics made it relatively easy for them to explore their own bodies. However, because the upper limit was too high, and because the division of levels based on energy was not so clear, it was not that easy to cross between levels. In summary, it was difficult for physical life forms to advance, but it was relatively easy for them to reach the limit since the limit was low. For energy life forms, advancing was simple, but it was difficult for them to cross the hurdles one after another because the limit was too high. For the former, moving at a constant speed and basically unobstructed, the earlier they could end things in peace. On the other hand, the faster they could cross the hurdles, wandering around for millions of years without making any progress. After listening to Feng's conversation with them, Yao Guang could not help reaching out to tug at her pale, white hair and mumbled, "Should I switch life forms too?" Yin Nuashing turned to look at her, only then noticing that Yao Guang was the only one among the four who maintained her physical life form. It was not easy for him to comment on that. Just do as you like, and don't care if it's more suitable. A path that suits you and the height you can reach at the end is far better than a path that is theoretically higher but does not suit you. Being able to reach the limit and not reaching the limit are two completely different states. Then, am I suitable? Energy life form? Yao Guang hurriedly asked, a little anxious. My judgment has always been bad. I'm a little hesitant, so... Yin Nuashing turned to Yuan Kong and saw her shrug. We did talk about a similar topic, he said softly in their souls. I don't know what she was hesitating about, but we didn't push her. Just as you said, big idiot, it's best to choose your own path. Yin Nuashing was speechless. After some thought, he decided to speak seriously. Under normal circumstances, as long as the path taken before does not conflict with the change in life form, there would be no hindrance in that aspect. If you want to ask if the path after changing life form is suitable for anyone, well, you actually have to walk it once to know. After all, everyone's situation is different, and there is no way to judge thousands of steps in advance. Energy life forms are stronger than physical life forms, even if they do not reach the limit. That is an unchanging truth, but it takes a lot of effort and time to advance step by step. Everyone's path of exploration of essence is different, and that is also one of the reasons why I said that the path ahead of energy life forms is difficult. It requires repeated adjustments and changes to one's own constitution and essence. Sometimes, if one takes a wrong path, one would even have to turn around and walk back, completely abandoning the wrong path before moving forward again. Every adjustment to essence is a pain that requires constant groping, is a pain that goes deep into the soul and is etched in the bones. What I just said about suitability is based on the fact that you have other paths to choose from. After all, the exploration of essence is just one of the countless paths, and your path of advancement has yet to come to an end. There's still many paths that you can choose from, and some of them are not as heavy and difficult as well as achieving good results. However, for the path of essence, the path of energy life forms and physical life forms, the amount of time and effort required is on a completely different level. Before your path is cut off, and there are still many paths around you, if you feel that you cannot bear the burden of the path of energy life forms, it would be unsuitable. Under such circumstances, instead of forcefully charging through this path, it would be better to change directions. After all, you are not as unlucky as me, and the path ahead is not blocked. Why would you insist on a path that you cannot bear and burden yourself without any obvious benefits? After transforming into an energy life form, you would need a lot of time to tidy up yourself in order to return to your original state. Before that, you would be stuck in the same spot, and if you don't tidy up well, you might even have to take a few steps back. Seeing that Yao Guang was about to faint from her big brother's words, Dao Heaven softly added, as a reminder, back then, I had also hesitated for a long time before I chose to change my essence. Energy life forms. Although they are powerful, they require a lot of effort. If you put your heart and soul into it, you might even slow down your progress in the main path of cultivation. Something like that. Yao Guang was dazed for a while, before her expression slowly relaxed, as if she had made up her mind. Seeing that, Yin Nuashing continued, it's fine as long as you understand. No matter what you choose, you just have to move forward with your own thoughts. If you want to change your life form, you can look for the commander-in-chief or the vice-commander of the node, or Hui and the others. Of course, you can also look for me, but you might have to wait for a while if you want to find me. I have to deal with all the bumps on my body before I have the time to do other things. Yao Guang nodded and pursed her lips into a smile. Then I'll wait for a while. Actually, I've been thinking about asking you for help for a while, Big Brother Phone. There were a few times when I almost came, just a little, and I've already thought of how to say it. Yin Nuashing and the others were speechless. No wonder she made up her mind so quickly. Was this girl the kind of person who would recite lines in front of a mirror in the middle of the night to simulate a situation? Feeling the strange gazes of the four, Yao Guang scratched her long white hair in embarrassment. I've actually hesitated for a long time. I'm not like you guys who can make changes immediately with a firm goal. I've been reciting to the void for a long time, but I'm still a little hesitant. They used to tell me that I'm always indecisive when it comes to my own matters. Looks like I haven't changed even after a few eras. The four were speechless. They saw it. They all saw it. Chapter 1935. Boom! There was a dull roar. It was the sound of the earth crashing into each other. Yin Nuashing and the other four stood at the edge of the Rift Valley, shading their eyes with their hands as they looked at the far end of the rift valley. The grayish-white dust had been thrown into the air by the impact of the movement. A node of the rift valley was slowly closing, and the moment it closed, it released a colorful light of energy projecting from the ground into the air and dispelling part of the thick haze, weaving a continuous thin veil of aurora into the sky. It was clearly visible even when the sun shone. A sound mixed with the aura of order and rule reached their ears simultaneously. Instead, it was the tremor that took a while before it reached their feet. After all, it was not the movement of an energy explosion, and it was a little slow when it came from tens of thousands of miles away. However, the tremor did not weaken at all. It made them experience the shaking of the void for a while. Looking at the space squeezing in front of them, twisting like a towel, twisting into a twist like a wave, like an abstract painting, the four girls could not help but sigh at the exaggeration of the movement. They wondered if it had something to do with the chaos concept body. When Yin Nuoxing saw it, she only wanted to say one thing. Ouch! Yuan Kong and the others were stunned when they heard the gloomy and slightly painful words. They turned their heads and saw the big idiot slowly squatting on the ground, holding his head with his hands and shaking his head with a pale face. Only then did they realize that this was a construction in his soul. They saw it as entertainment, just like watching a scene of moving mountains and filling seas in the ordinary world. They had forgotten that they were actually in his soul world. Such a huge movement felt like his soul had been torn in half and was being pushed back. Wah! Just thinking about it made them feel so painful that their faces were filled with agony. Yuan Kong squatted down and held the big idiot's shoulder. How are you? Ugh, not so good. Yin Nuoxing frowned and kept shaking her head, trying to relieve the soul-deep pain. However, it seemed that the more she shook, the more uncomfortable it was. When she stopped, it was so painful that she twitched again. The damage to the soul is actually okay. It's just that the healing of the concept level damage. There's a second damage. I haven't gotten used to it yet. It's very painful. So painful that I feel like I'm back in my childhood when I found a team to go on a mission for the first time and accidentally got stabbed in the back. Yuan Kong smiled bitterly. Isn't your metaphor too detailed? It's not a metaphor. Yin Nuoxing covered half of his face and stopped shaking his head. This is what really happened. When I was young, I was naive, cute, silly, and foolish. I gave my back to someone whom I thought I was familiar with after knowing them for only 4 to 5 days. In the end, I was stabbed in the back. When I think about it, I feel a slight pain in my spine. Hey, it's the part you're holding. Usually, there would be a follow-up to such a statement. Based on her understanding of the big idiot, there must be a follow-up. And then, Yin Nuoxing tilted her head. I almost died. Half of my life in exchange for 3 lives. It's not a loss, not a loss. The 4, they knew there would be a follow-up, but they did not expect it to be this extent. Did he not take his life seriously since he was young? You didn't cherish your life when you were young? Dao Tian squatted in front of him, holding his face with both hands and rubbing it. More than 10 eras have passed, and you still don't cherish your life. Hey, cherish my life. Ugh, don't rub my face. Wait for me to finish. Yin Nuoxing puffed her cheeks and stopped the girl's mischievous hands. She sighed softly and said faintly, the topic of cherishing life is a false topic from the birth of all life. It's a false proposition. You can only control a part of your life. This part is safe as long as you don't treat it carelessly. The other part is full of uncertainty, randomness, and suddenness. In other words, it's either probability or probability. It's too heavy and too light. No one can grasp it. It's just a joke. I can pray that the probability is 99% every time, and that might be the truth. However, as long as there's one time, whether it's a short, long, or infinite life, as long as there is one time where the probability is 0, 1%, it's just like when I was stabbed in the back when I was young. From a moment I was stabbed in the back, my fate took a turn. No, to be more specific, from a moment I met those people, it had already taken a turn, and it was a turn that fell straight to the bottom of the valley. My fate fell headlong into the smelly ditch and was never clean again. Let me ask you a funny question. What would happen if someone else encountered the same situation? For example, you guys encountered the same situation? By the way, when I encountered the same thing, I was about 12 or 13 years old. Those three people were about the same level as me. Ugh, they were slightly stronger than me. They were also older than me. Yao Guang thought carefully. If this question were to happen to us, it might be more tragic. After all, we're girls. Yin Nuoxing. Aya, don't think about that. Just think of it as if you were me and encountered the same situation as me. Would I have died if I just lay there? Qing Yu asked calmly. There's a 50% chance. After all, the place is remote, and it's quite a distance from where there are people. Oh, by the way, I wasn't rescued by anyone at that time. I survived by myself, so this part of the plot can be skipped. By the way, I dragged my injuries and killed them all in half a minute. Although it made my injuries worse in the end, when I was done, I almost passed out with a kick in my legs. Qing Yu thought for a moment. Based on my temperament when I was a child, I should have just lay there in fear. Whether I'm dead or alive may not be known until later. If I survived, I don't know what I would have done. Maybe I would have cried and ran home. After all, it was a child. When encountering such a thing, there's not much to think about. Yuan Kong turned his head and snorted. I would have killed them with a blast of chaos energy. Yin Nuoxing and the others. After all, they were beings of the order of chaos. They were natural energy life forms and were born with the power of the order of chaos. It was hard to say who was the one who stabbed who. Big idiot, what's your answer? Why did you? Yuan Kong felt that this answer might be one of the reasons that led him to this day. It might be one of the reasons for his current personality. Yin Nuoxing slowly breathed a sigh of relief. She slowly stood up when she felt a little better. Facing the great rift valley that had been completely purified and was just waiting to heal, she let out a strange laugh. From the moment they pulled out their knives, my life and fate had been destroyed. Then let's die together. You want to live after destroying everything of mine. That doesn't exist. It will never exist. Such an answer, even if it crushes my soul, I will destroy everything that caused all of this to happen. He turned his head and looked at the four girls who looked half shocked and half unsurprised. He smiled sweetly. This is my initial obsession with living and fighting. Even though things have changed with the passage of time, and the obsession has changed a lot as I kept moving forward. Perhaps even the general direction of the obsession has changed. But even now, the shadow of the initial obsession still remains. It has never disappeared. Perhaps if this had never happened, I would have become a little more normal as all of you wished. A little, more like a human. Perhaps I would not have changed. The initial guiding effect of the initial incident is nothing more than sowing a seed. There are many more things that happen later. Perhaps, there are many ifs. But in the current outcome of the fixed reality, it is nothing more than a joke. Gently stroking his long hair that was slowly turning back to its original color, he breathed a long sigh and looked at the hazy sky. That is why the phrase cherishing life is nothing but a joke from the very beginning. What you can cherish is only the part that you hold in your hand. When it comes to the other 1%, you just have to endure it. If you can't, you can only blame it on bad luck when it comes to natural disasters and void-level disasters. As for man-made disasters, I've already said that just now. Just like that, I walked further and further down this path and became more and more crooked. I don't think it's a big deal. Everything in this world is nonsense in the first place, and everything in this world is indifferent. With such thoughts, I became more and more abnormal until it became the current situation. It's not too bad, right? After all, jokes like the void, jokes like order and chaos do not require normal characteristics. Normal people would never be able to participate in such a stage. Even if they did, they would never truly step into it. They would just be one of Chun Li's members who were accidentally injured by chaos. I'm quite unlucky. There are actually quite a number of such incidents. As the saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. It's not like I've forgotten the pain after the scars have healed. It's just that, well, there might still be that little bit of hope in that thing in the bottom of my heart. But in the end, nothing good ever came out of it. I've been stabbed in the back so many times that I chose not to believe in anything. I don't want to believe in anything. Walking alone and doing things by myself is quite good. Joining something, taking charge, whatever, and if I think about it carefully, if I'm one of those high and mighty people who always talk about reason, blabber on, playing with people's hearts, and ugh, no, I want to vomit. I'm not a talent from the performing arts. I'm from the combat arts. In the future, everything I do will be by myself, fighting and fighting alone. The number of times I've feigned civility with others could be counted on one hand. They thought for a moment. Imagine him standing on a high platform and waving his arm, while the people below the platform were all fooled and brainless people who only knew how to shout for faith, for justice, and for honor. Every once in a while, he would have to feign civility with the visitors from the neighboring worlds or from other major sects and factions. When they thought about it, they felt that this style was not quite right. As expected, the crazy observer who would collapse the void without saying anything was more normal than a certain observer who would never compromise with anything. Yuan Kong and the other three were silent. To sum it up, they basically relied on brute force when fighting, brute force when doing things, and flipping the table when negotiating. The rest had not been decided yet. Anyway, that was more or less what they meant. They just needed to convey it to him. If they wanted him to sit down and have a war of words, if they had the time to do that, they could just use Origin Primal Chaos and be done with it. After all, they did not need to be gifted in this aspect to deal with the biggest problem in the Deyuan realm. Those who wanted to negotiate with the other side were either mentally ill or mentally ill. If I'm targeted, I'll kill him first. If I'm threatened, I'll kill him as soon as I meet him. If someone comes to me, I won't be able to go back. Although I might not kill them all, I'm not interested in killing them casually unless they annoy me. It's troublesome, and I'm not bloodthirsty, but that's my attitude. My stand is firm, and I've never changed. I don't expect such things to change. When you speculate about others with kindness, you may get kindness or malice. If you look at others with malice, you'll find that your malice is far from enough. Just because you have a bottom line, it doesn't mean that others have one too. The phrase, "the world is beautiful," is just a world painted by children's sketchbooks. You see, these are all things that can destroy and distort one's life and fate. When these things happen, everything has changed. It's impossible to compromise. If you compromise once, there will be a second time. You'll never be able to let go of yourself if you hold on to a fluke. Anyway, I'm not a person. I'm just a lunatic. Yin Nuoxing sat on the edge of the Great Rift Valley, dangling her legs in the air and swinging them casually. Whether it's in this life or the next, I don't plan to talk to many people. It's too troublesome, and I don't have time to waste on talking. That's what you say. Dao Heaven sat down beside her. Aren't you talking to us too? You've even wandered around with the Guardian for a dozen eras. Well, maybe there's still a little bit of kindness in my heart, but it's just a little bit. Of course, a more accurate answer would be that it doesn't matter. As I said just now, strangling things in the cradle is my standard for dealing with most things after reaching rebirth. I don't have to care too much about whether things are troublesome or not, and I don't have to care who is involved. I just have to be good at fighting. The light of truth in the void will flatten all troublesome things, and if it can't, then flatten the void as well. The four girls smiled bitterly in their hearts. It's true that I'm good at fighting. As for talking to you, it's not troublesome to have a heart-to-heart talk with you. Yin Nuoxing was slightly stunned as she spoke. Of course, sometimes when I talk, I don't feel that it's troublesome. But if you feel that it's troublesome, just say it. I won't say it. It's not troublesome, not troublesome. Dao Heaven smiled and nudged her gently. She tilted her head and rested her chin on her hand, looking into her eyes. Go on. It's very interesting to listen to. The other three girls quickly nodded. Yin Nuoxing said, Are you listening to it as a story? Yes, the four girls said in unison. Yin Nuoxing's face twitched. I think my story is quite boring. Why do you all like to listen to my story as much as they do? The things that a normal life comes into contact with are far less than the things that an abnormal life comes into contact with. Dao Heaven stretched and responded to her big brother's question. Although we have our own experiences, In general, we haven't deviated from the trajectory of most of our lives. It's different from Big Brother. Besides, it's not boring. Big Brother is a strange person. I'm very interested in everything about Big Brother, just like what we said when we first met. Yin Nuashing said, "I'll stop talking." Hey, Yin Nuashing quickly stood up and changed the topic before his mouth twitched and accidentally revealed his dark history. All right, get up quickly. The rift is about to close again. Not long after he finished speaking, another violent tremor came from the Rift Valley. It was still the sound that arrived first, and the tremor slowly moved a distance away. However, judging from the time of the tremor, the location where the rift closed this time was much closer to them. The tremors continued for about a minute before stopping. The huge tremors caused Yuan Kong to tremble all over. He quickly dug his ears. The tremors are a little too strong. It feels like there's a huge piece of land in my head. The feeling of the resonance of the concept level scar seems to be a little better now. Even if it's just a slight movement like looking at it, I'll be affected. What an unreasonable power. Dao Heaven patted her numb body and sighed. Suddenly, she remembered something. She turned her head to look for her big brother, who had not spoken since the beginning. She saw someone lying on the ground with his hands folded over his abdomen. His whole body was transparent, and his face had a peaceful expression. She was so scared that she quickly shouted, "Big Brother has fainted!" The four of them hurriedly pulled Yin Nuashing up and used all kinds of reliable and unreliable methods to torment him. After tormenting him for a few minutes, they saw him slowly wake up. He covered half of his face and looked haggard and half dead. It hurt so much. They couldn't help but smile bitterly. This was like dragging a living soul and forcefully piecing two halves of a soul back together. Just thinking about it was painful. In addition, this injury wasn't a serious injury. If it acted up, they could tell just by looking at him. Even with his strong spirit and soul, he still fainted from the pain. They guessed that he didn't roll on the ground in pain because this action wasn't very elegant. His image would probably collapse if he rolled on the ground twice. The feeling of pain persisted for a few minutes. Yin Nuashing trembled as he pressed against the grayish-white ground and muttered, "Concept scars. The resistance power seems to have weakened. It's almost exhausted. The speed of recovery will be much faster, which means the pain will intensify." He stuttered for about half a minute. He felt the tearing in his soul getting stronger and stronger. Finally, he could not stand it anymore. The corner of his mouth trembled as he said to Yuan Kong and the others, "Before the rift recovers, don't wake me up. I can't take it anymore. Do you want to sleep to avoid the pain?" Yuan Kong did not know whether to laugh or cry. "If I tremble for a while more, I'm afraid I'll develop some strange illness. I can't take it anymore. I'll go first." Yin Nuashing trembled and nodded. Then, the energy in his right hand condensed into a brick. Under the shocked and confused gazes of the four, he smashed the brick on his head. With a loud bang, he fell to the ground with a peaceful expression on his face. The four, is this his physical sleep? He is a wolf. He smashed a brick on his face just like that. That red mark, they felt pain just looking at it. The continuous tremors of the earth made Yuan Kong and the others clearly feel that the tremors were getting more and more intense. It seemed that just as he said, the recovery speed was getting faster and faster. No wonder he had to knock himself out first. Using this kind of recovery speed to treat concept-level wounds, they felt as if they were watching themselves being sawed from the middle along a vertical line. Moreover, the sawing speed was getting faster and faster. If this was a real feeling, it would probably cause everyone to scream out in pain until their voices broke. After moving this big idiot far away, they calmly watched as the origin energy of the Great Rift Valley emerged inch by inch and illuminated the aurora curtain in the sky. It was as if they were watching a colorful belt of light emerge from the ground and extend to the other side of their line of sight little by little. Accompanied by the tremors that reverberated in their ears, they could not tell for a moment whether the colorful belt of light burst out from the ground or appeared after the Great Rift Valley closed up. In addition to the shocking scene, There was also a discomfort coming from the midline of their bodies. They felt that it was better not to keep staring at it, so that they would not have the illusion that they were being sawed in half. Feeling that the weight on her hand was getting lighter and lighter, Yuan Kong suspiciously lowered her head. The big idiot's face had a serene expression of ascension written all over it. Her body was so transparent that it could already reflect her arms. Furthermore, it was getting fainter and fainter. She was about to melt into the air. Wah! Big idiot, hang in there. The four of them immediately panicked and hurriedly rushed over to save her. 5 minutes later, Yuan Kong was holding a ball of light in her arms. She looked puzzled and speechless. His consciousness turned into a ball of light in his soul. I think I can understand what CU and Blue Phoenix felt when they saw him turn into a ball of light in front of them. Dao Tian and the other two couldn't help but smile bitterly in their hearts. Seriously, this guy? He disappeared in just 2 minutes. Just a while ago, he was so heroic that he used a brick to anesthetize himself. But the next moment, good heavens, he directly entered a state of mild collapse. It was a mild collapse of his consciousness and soul, which was more troublesome than the collapse of his physical body. Standing at the entrance of the mansion and looking into the distance, the soul world in front of them had split into 2 halves. One half remained the same, while the other half was filled with ashes and haze. The heavy and strange aura was still heavy. Even though it had been dealt with, the earth showed no signs of recovering. This was especially true for the large area at the border and beyond the border. The ground there was still grayish-white, and the traces of erosion by broken snow and cracks in the earth were clearly visible. The scenery that once covered this area had changed from green mountains to a deathly pale plain. Even though the erosion had been completely stopped, it was still unknown how long it would take for it to recover. It seemed that there were still some things left there that kept the space in a state of death. Compared to the earth, the thick haze that covered the sky in the distance was dissipating bit by bit. The sky gradually recovered from its gloomy state. The sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. The tremors of the Great Rift Valley were still ongoing. Before it completely healed, the soul world couldn't begin to recover. And as the Great Rift Valley recovered bit by bit, the big idiot soul would become weaker and weaker. Right now, it's only a slight collapse. Well, let's hope it doesn't get any worse. They had taken some precautionary measures, but it was obvious how effective the precautionary measures were in dealing with the secondary damage of concept class wounds. Taking precautions felt more like comforting themselves. The big idiot had waved his hand to indicate that he couldn't deal with it, and even had to use a brick to numb himself so that he would be out of sight and out of mind. How could they, with their thin arms and legs, deal with it? She placed the big idiot's soul on her big sister's flower bed and pressed the little purple soul that had yet to grow up on the bed. She felt a little strange when she saw the purple ball lying on the bed without any reaction. Previously, when the big idiot was being corrupted by chaos, it did not seem to have any reaction at all. It did not grab the big idiot, nor was it affected by the big idiot. It was still cooped up in this spiritual world. Oh, the soul world was not affected much when chaos eroded it. What they saw now was the destruction caused by concept class power. Sister. It seemed that she was still in the process of merging with the big idiot's soul. After all, half of his soul was not listening to him. Sister, as his secondary soul, should be helping to stop the deterioration of his soul injury. Yuan Kong looked at the 2 balls on the bed and thought for a moment. Then, she placed the little purple soul next to the big idiot's ball of light and squeezed the 2 balls together. Then, she turned to Dao Tian and the others and said, "Let's go out and not disturb the big idiot's rest. We have to tell the guardians that his soul and consciousness are slightly collapsing. Yeah, we have been here for more than a day. We have to tell them about the situation so that they won't worry about it." Qing Yu nodded. Dao Tian secretly squatted by the bed and poked the ball of light a few times. When he felt 3 pairs of strange eyes staring at him from behind, he laughed awkwardly and quickly stood up. He quickly dragged the 3 girls away and said, "Ahaha, I'm saying goodbye to Big Brother. It's okay, it's okay. Let's go." After the four girls left, the soul world quieted down. Only the continuous vibrations in the space made the soul world seem very restless. However, there was something strange in one place. Little purple soul, which was lying on the bed, seemed to have finally ended its long sleep. It suddenly expanded into a perfectly round ball and turned a few times on the spot. It seemed to have woken up. Then, it suddenly saw another ball of light beside it. Following the familiar feeling, it hurriedly rubbed against it twice. Then, it went in and stuffed the transparent ball of light into a solid purple ball. Chapter 1936. In the observer space, although a certain fellow was still unconscious, it did not hinder the use of the observer space. In fact, even if the person in charge was not around, the sea of energy was still churning on its own, and its energy had increased exponentially compared to a few days ago. Now, they were suddenly feeling glad that a certain someone did not get carried away that day and did not press the entire sea of energy on their faces, or they would have been done for. As expected, they were glad that a certain someone had pressed all the things that he should have pressed down on and did not let him reveal all the trump cards that he had personally prepared. Conservatively speaking, the void front line would have been blown up with every card that was revealed, and if all of them were revealed, the order void would have been useless. So, the question was, how many times could Maple blow up the void front line? How would I know? Anyway, the big idiot is the most dangerous person in the order void. Yuan Kong muttered, scratching her head. How was she supposed to answer such a difficult question when she had just entered? Everyone crossed their arms and nodded in unison. Completely agreed. More than 2 days had passed, and it was almost 3 days later. Everyone who was normal, meaning everyone who was normal, had recovered, except for a certain fellow who was still half dead. Now, they were normal, did not know what to do. In short, their priority was to solve the problem of the void frontline defense. Over the past 3 days, everyone had been on tenterhooks. They were afraid that the underworld would suddenly beat the beat, shout slogans, and charge toward the entire void frontline with bandages tied over their heads. Every minute and second of these 3 days had passed by in fear. It was also the Order warriors who had been guarding the front line for the past 3 days until their stomachs hurt. They probably weren't as nervous as they were when the 20 high-tier primeval charged at the front line. Fortunately, nothing happened in these 3 days, and 3 days passed quietly. Referring to the quiet pouring of firepower for 3 days, no node applied for support, and no node shouted, "My venerable God above," and rushed out while cursing. No, there was a node who desperately submitted an application to help sweep the nodes guarded by others. After all, that node had been growing hair for who knows how many years, and they were all led by Blacklord. Each and every one of them was hot-blooded and could not wait to charge into the void, but they were forced to be logistics. He was already thinking whether he should transfer this group of overly hot-blooded fellows to other nodes, and let the fellows of other nodes who were already suffering from combat syndrome switch to the non-combat logistics node to rest and recuperate for a period of time. Anyway, for various reasons, the repaired fellows replaced the fellows who had been suffering from stomachs for 3 days. At this moment, the state of personnel transfer was continuing very normally. They had just planned to restart the origin baptism plan and were now busy accelerating the transfer of personnel. Then, Yuan Kong and the others came and told them about Maple's news. The collapse of the soul and consciousness, concept-level scars, and so on, they felt used to it. Although the extra novelty at the end made them feel a little uncomfortable, they had already gotten used to the overall situation. He had been pressed down and eroded by the concept body of chaos for more than half an hour, and had also interacted with them for more than half an hour. If nothing happened, Maple himself would probably feel sorry for himself. "How was his situation when you came out?" we asked. "I don't know. I haven't learned how to judge his situation from a ball of light." Yuan Kong shook her head vigorously. Hui and the others could not help but smile bitterly when they heard what she said. This was indeed a very difficult technical work, especially the slight collapse of the soul and consciousness. If the body collapsed, they could still judge from the soul and consciousness. But if the latter collapsed slightly, they did not know how to judge. Anyway, what was lying on the hospital bed at this moment was just a body. That guy's soul and consciousness were still in the midst of being hastily reconstructed, or perhaps he was still being tortured. He scratched his head with a distressed expression. "I'll take 2 energy cores and pluck 2 flowers to take a look. Sigh, this guy's always so troublesome." Yuan Kong and the others shuddered, and the former hurriedly waved her hand. There's no need to go. We just came out, and it's not good to keep disturbing the big idiot. Let him sleep there. After all, he'll lift the coffin lid and come out in a few days." We thought about it, and felt that it was true, but the slightly stiff expressions of the 4 girls made him lose control of his brain. "That's what you say, but your expressions make me feel that there's something hidden. What did you do to that guy when you came out? You didn't strip him, did you?" Sui Feng and Brother Lei, who were reconstructing the domain of origin, all spat out mouthfuls of saliva and rolled their eyes. There were more girls in this place. Could this guy's mouth not float? As expected, little Brother Feng had to come out at this time and beat him up before he said more shocking things to give him a rest. Seeing Yuan Kong grimacing in pain without saying anything, but his expression became more subtle, as if he had really guessed correctly. But it was not just that. Hui was slightly surprised and tilted his head back. His expression changed greatly. Could it be that not only did he strip, but he also took the opportunity to do more? "Shut up. You shut up. Drag him away, drag him away." Sui Feng and Brother Lei each covered their mouths and held their arms. The 2 of them cursed as they dragged away Hui Jun, who was hesitating to speak. Sui Feng tilted her head and looked at Hui Jun, who was probably going to be dragged into the depths of the domain for a friendly exchange. She turned her head and looked at Yuan Kong and the others. "In short, his current situation is like what you said, right? That's it." Yuan Kong nodded and looked at the domain of origin that was being reconstructed. She felt that there was nothing to do here, so she waved her hand and prepared to leave. "Then that's it. I just came to tell you, so you don't have to worry about the big idiot. Since you're still busy, we will go back to the front line and see what we can do. There's so many people at the front line now. When did there become so many people? Since you're already here, there is no rush to leave." Sui Feng shook her head and waved at the 4 of them to follow. She then turned and walked into the depths of the domain of origin. The baptism of origin is almost ready. There are people in charge of bringing people here from the front line. You all came here just in time to settle this matter. There is no need to make an extra trip. Well, but as for you, Sui Feng turned her head, her blue eyes fixed on Yuan Kong. She glanced up and down and whispered softly, "The stars are uncertain. It is not easy to deal with. As for you, let Feng Ling handle it personally. Although we have made a judgment, there may be a slight error. Moreover, it is a big matter related to you, so it needs to be handled by him." She did not understand the first part of the soft voice, but the latter part confused her. Yuan Kong tilted her head and mumbled, "What do you mean? What are you all planning to do?" "The baptism of origin refers to..." She thought about the situation of Feng Ling's sister-in-law that Hui Jun had told her before. Sui Feng then said softly, "You are a being of chaos and order. Although most of the laws and order that you have constructed have become inclined towards order through your own efforts, there are still some..." "All right, I understand." Yuan Kong immediately raised her hand to interrupt her. She did not need to say anything to know what to say next. She could only grin helplessly. "Let's wait for the big idiot to decide. I will listen to him." Her elder sister was also a muddle-headed person. Anything that involved them and the origin could only be handed over to the big idiot to handle. Otherwise, who else could she hand it over to? She also knew what Sui Qing was considering, so she didn't force herself or agree immediately. You can even make fun of me for running into trouble again. Therefore, there's no need to force yourself to decide anything. If one day someone whispers in your ears, you need to do this for your own good, you need to do this for your own good, You need to do this so you won't cause trouble for anyone. You need to do this 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 for your own good. You need to do this you need to do this you need to do this for your own good. You need to do this 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 for your own good. You need to do this you need to do this you need to do this for your own good. You need to do this 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 for your own good. You need to do this 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 for your own good. You need to do this you need to do this you need to do this for your own good. You need to do this 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 for your own good. You need to do this you need to do this you need to do this for your own good. You need to do this you need to do this you need to do this for your own good. You need to do this you need to do this you need to do this for your own good. You need to do this and so on. You need to do this for your own good. You need to do this and so on. You need to do this and so on. Don't be too impulsive. Sometimes, what if the so-called good you think is limited by your own cognitive limitations? Don't be forced or induced to make a choice by anyone. You won't be so miserable. Look at me. I'm miserable enough. I'm being toyed around in the palm of the two broken things of the great Yuan realm. Is there anything worse than that? The words that the big idiot said during the family meeting were still deeply imprinted in her mind. She was deeply shocked. Although it was a long speech, it could be summed up in one sentence. Talk about important things openly. Don't cause trouble before you finish talking, especially things that have a great impact on you, or even things that are not only related to you. Time is not urgent enough for you to be in a hurry to be reincarnated. Don't make any rash decisions, lest you cause more trouble. Generally speaking, if you let the big idiot solve the big trouble, it would more or less turn into a bigger trouble. In fact, it was necessary to say it because some important things were not only related to her, just like how the big idiot would say it every time he was ready to charge and die bravely, unless the situation was urgent. She actually agreed with this statement. It was not a festival or celebration, so there was no need to hold back the surprise and not say it. Well, I digress. In fact, she just wanted to say that she had to wait for the big idiot to solve the problem for her. Firstly, judging from her situation, this was definitely a big matter that could affect her. Secondly, he was the only one in the void frontline who could think about the origin and the chaos at the same time. She did not know much about the origin. Although Sui Qing and the others knew a lot about it, they could not make a more comprehensive judgment based on her special situation. It was not appropriate to make a decision rashly. Besides, there was still a lot of time. They could not do the baptism for the time being, but they had nothing to do for the time being. The Void Patrol team was all alone due to the emergency recall, and they were still counting the spoils of their wandering in the void. It would take some time to deal with the spoils of carrying things and the spoils of conversation. Before the new mission was assigned, the four of them were actually idle. Oh, to be specific, she was idle. Dao Tian and the others were going to the baptism, and she was just following behind to watch the fun. The arrangements are indeed a little scattered. There's nothing we can do about it. The current situation is still fine. If nothing unexpected happens, there's no need to transfer everyone back. But if something really happens, just like when Maple suddenly went berserk 2 days ago, we could only quickly gather those who were close to him and those who were in the nodes. But in this situation, most of our combat power isn't in the nodes. We can only be careful and make sure that nothing goes wrong. I feel a little tired if it happens again. If it's not little brother Maple, then it's not a big deal to deal with it. In other words, the most important thing is to hold little brother Maple down. Hold Maple down? That task has to be given to his girls to take turns. We can't do it alone. T-Sich, when she reached the depths of the domain of origin, Yuan Kong saw the Lord Guardian, Sui Feng, and the others leaning on a pillar and listening to what they were discussing. She perked up her ears and listened for a while before moving closer. "What are you guys talking about?" We and the others turned to look at her and shrugged. "What else could we be talking about?" "The Void Frontline and your brother-in-law," they said in unison. "I know, I just heard it. What do you mean by scattered?" Could it be that the Void Frontline? Yuan Kong scratched her head. "Well, it's more or less what you think." We nodded. "Actually, those who stay the Void Frontline, especially the nodes and the Order warriors who go to the Realm of Order to participate in the defense and battle, only occupy a small portion of the entire Void Frontline. Very little. Most of the others are scattered in various places of the Void of Order, as well as the Frontline World Special Zone. The Frontline World is still fine as it's close to the other nodes. Just like the other nodes, there's a special teleportation portal. No matter which node suddenly has a problem and requires an emergency assembly, they'll be done in a minute and a half. Then, they'll immediately grab their weapons and throw it at the enemy's face. So most of them are arranged in the Void of Order? Yuan Kong tilted her head and frowned in puzzlement. Are there so many people in the Void Patrol Squad? It can't be that they occupy 90% of the Void Frontline, right? We and the others looked at each other and scratched their heads. Yuan Kong was startled. "Is it more than 90%? Just put 2 more nines behind it." We scratched his head. Yuan Kong's eyes widened in shock when he heard what he said. The Void Patrol Squad actually accounted for 99% of the people in the Void Frontline. What are these people doing? We could not help but smile bitterly as he saw Yuan Kong staring as if she had seen a ghost. Actually, there were already a lot of people in the Void Patrol Squad before it was named. You have to go back 5 eras. After they established a foothold in the new Void Frontline, the Void Patrol Squad was already in a busy state. The things they had to do were no less important than guarding the Void Frontline. The dozens of echelons guarding the Void Frontline are the regular combat forces. Everyone doesn't have to worry about anything. They just have to think about how to throw their firepower at the abyssal death mist and how to prevent the enemy from throwing their firepower at us. This part of the Order warriors and a large number of logistics personnel at each node together make up the 1,000th of the Void Patrol Squad. Although the number seems small, everyone is the best of the best, so there's no need to worry about combat effectiveness. Yuan Kong was slightly stunned. She tilted her head and thought. Speaking of which, when I came back from a few missions, I didn't see anyone who was not a Yuansher in the front line. Occasionally, there were some who were not Yuansher in the front line. They seemed to be newcomers from the front line or other places, or some special ones. Well, our elite forces are all gathered in the Void Frontline's realm of order. We nodded. When they beat up Maple that day, they gathered less than half of the regular frontline forces, but they did have 40 to 50% of the frontline's combat effectiveness. After all, everyone with elite combat effectiveness was gathered here. When the defense line changed, all the mid-tier Yuansher gathered, and the low-tier Yuansher filled the void with energy torrents to prevent the abyssal death mist from entering. In other words, 95% of the people gathered in the Creation Sanctum that day were mid-tier Yuansher. Plus we and the other signs were all present. They made up 40 to 50% of the combat effectiveness. The other 50 to 60% of the combat effectiveness was made up of the remaining people. Even with such a high level of precision, they were still almost beaten half to death by Maple's chaos transformation. All right, that day, in the calculation of 40 to 50% of their combat power, they threw Maple out. After all, they were going to deal with him at that time. In the beginning, the Void Patrol Squad had a lot of members, but it wasn't as exaggerated as what you're hearing now. Later on, the number of members increased bit by bit. Many things, big and small, became opportunities, and after that, the number increased by a lot. Yuan Kong thought for a moment. Big things like the time when 20 high-tier Yuansher charged into the front line of the Void. Well, to be specific, after the 20 high-tier Yuansher were beaten back and regained their footing. Well, that's what it means. To be specific, every time the front line of the Void encountered something, retreated, or adjusted after regaining their footing, the Void Patrol team would be busy and the number of people would increase, Hui said with his arms crossed. Every time after regaining their footing, they would send out more people. Yuan Kong was confused. I thought every time after regaining their footing, they would quickly increase their combat effectiveness to prevent the underworld from suddenly making a big move. You are right, but this part of the situation can be left to the conventional forces. Our current confrontation with the underworld could actually be said to be a dispensable level of battle. The underworld just casually threw a bunch of cannon fodder to fill the void and attack the Order Void. Even in the few eras when we were confronting the underworld, they had never really mobilized a huge force to charge at the front line. They just threw a few high-tier yuanshi to guard the battlefield. In other words, the Void front line being beaten up is just a matter of convenience, and we just have to use the strength that is convenient to deal with it and keep each other in check. Huey's face twitched and could not help but mumble. Although it is convenient, we still have to consider the possibility that the underworld might go crazy, so we let the elites of the Order Warriors stay at the front line. Well, after all, there's no need to let all the elites go to the rear. So there is nothing wrong with that. As for the part that is not convenient, you know that the underworld is stirring up trouble in their nest. We are quickly accumulating and strengthening our strength, and are ready to charge out and fight by force. As for what the Void Patrol is doing that they need so many people, Sui Feng coughed dryly and took over the topic. They are roaming the Order Void, including the middle and lower planes where there are no obstructions. They're expanding the Void Seal, searching for undiscovered worlds, searching for signs of void turbulence, searching for the relics of the gods. Lastly, this is a special group wandering around the void with the origin energy creations we left behind. How is it? All of them are related to the Void frontline, and their priority is not lower than guarding the Void frontline, right? Hui shrugged at her. Things have settled down over the last half an era, and many have been transferred to the Void Patrol Squad. Actually, we could still reshuffle the personnel after installing the new generation of energy towers, but after some thought, we decided not to do so, lest the front lines encounter a calamity, and we have no time to mobilize our forces to deal with it. Yuan Kong was speechless. It was true. The underworld's territory was much larger than theirs, and there were even signs of them meddling in the upper planes. The expansion of the Void Seal was to prevent them from finding gaps in the upper planes and stabbing the Void front line in the back. They also had to leave a small number of people to guard certain special places to prevent a node-sized abyssal death shroud from outside the Void Seal. That had happened often in the past, but in recent years, as we said, they were simply dealing with it casually, which was why they were too lazy to do such things. They simply cooperated with the Void frontline and fought back and forth at the 1,300 nodes. There were a few more things to be said, but to sum it up, everything related to increasing the Void frontline's forces, especially the search for the relics of the primordial gods, was progressing slowly. To be honest, there might not even be any progress, but it had to be done. It was no wonder that so many people had to be moved around the Order Void. These were all long-term missions, and unless the Void frontline encountered a major disaster, such as a certain idiot going berserk in the Void Calamity or the underworld suddenly attacking, they would not be casually moved back. Yuan Kong had a sudden realization as she thought about it. When the big idiot went chaos, you guys had called back the Void Patrol. No wonder there's so many people in a node city, and no wonder it took so long to deal with it. You had called back everyone who was on a long-term mission. Hui smiled bitterly. How could it not be a lot when a number of people suddenly increased by 1,000 times? Every node would probably be overcrowded. Just kidding, there was no telling how many layers of overlapping space in the node city, and it would definitely not be crowded. After all, they knew that there would be a lot of people in the node city, and they had prepared beforehand. If they stayed in the node city, they would see a group of people running around, and a person suddenly appearing from a crack in the space beside them. Everyone was busy getting to know the new face. You heard what we said just now. Because there are too many people out there, it would take a little time to be mobilized back when there's an emergency. It's quite awkward that the time is neither up nor down, and it's a bit of a headache. Hui rubbed his forehead gloomily. Yuan Kong had a deep understanding. They had rushed back from the void, but before they could reach the front line, the emergency order had been lifted. The big idiot had already gone crazy. So what could they do? Since they were already back, they could only clear up the matter at hand and treat it as a long-awaited report, and then come back to rest and replenish. In other words, the big idiot might have already torn down the front line of the void, and they had yet to return from the void. It was quite awkward when they thought about it carefully. Hui shrugged and spread his hands. So, under normal circumstances, there's actually no problem. If there's nothing, they won't call everyone back. But when there's really something, Sui Feng scratched his ear and continued. If they can't be called back in time, oh well, just like this time. But this time, the situation is still fine, and there's no big deal. So instead of thinking of a way to solve this problem, Yuan Kong grunted. Why don't we think of a way to hold the big idiot back? The three smiled bitterly and nodded. That's right. As the strongest firepower in the front line of the void, he was quite reliable, and he alone could take on countless people. However, he was also targeted by the things in the void of chaos for various reasons. So there was another side to his reliability, which was called uncertainty and instability. They were afraid that one day he would really shout, "I'm willing to join the void of chaos," and then use the nether void sword and rhythm of light to destroy the front line of the void. But actually, we don't have to worry too much about that. The only things that can affect little brother Feng are the chaotic concept bodies, and it's hard for them to even come out. And to be honest, Sui Feng covered his face and whispered, this time, it's purely little brother Feng's own carelessness. The three couldn't help but smile bitterly. It wasn't just him, they were careless as well. They all thought that there would be no problem, but in the end, they still underestimated those ink monsters. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.